There we go. We have arrived. There we go. We're going to immediately click over to Facebook, everybody. We're instantly going to Facebook land, and we're going to check out. Oh, my Lord. For the first time ever, I want people to know this. Okay, good. We got some people in the room already. For the first time ever, since I've started this strange journey of live streaming, Facebook they have not censored my stream. So we might get a couple people on Facebook, you guys. Usually you guys have heard me say this a million times before. Every time I do a live of any sort and I'll go to do it on Facebook AI instantly puts it on only me. So it's like every single time I've had to do one of these, I'll instantly click over to Facebook, and I've had to switch like the public set, like the security settings, or I don't know what is the proper term, but for the first time ever, we clicked over there and it's literally operational. So we could say it could be said that maybe the AI approves of this here of this here broadcast today. I've often wondered, sometimes the AI will shut you down. Every now and then they'll sort of like, okay, go ahead, go on, do your thing. We'll shut you down later. But anyway, thank you for tuning in, everybody. We're back. I don't know how we made it back. And I don't know how we keep doing this every single week, but it's a thing. It's a thing that we're doing, and we're going to be doing it next week, and maybe the week after that, and who knows? It just keeps on going. Timelines are shifting, and honestly, they really, really are. For some of us, we might call it, World War III. So if you want to go there, some of us will say it's the Great Awakening. It's the timeline shift. It's or maybe it's the Great Reset. If you're on the other side, you're on the Great Reset. Other people think it's the fall of Atlantis, whatever kind of new age spiritualist label you want to tack on to the energy of the moment. It's been intense. It's been wild. And so if you're here on this broadcast, thank you for making it. You've survived literally every moment of your life. You made it through all the traumas, all the triumphs, and you have arrived at this strange moment in time, which happens to be all of us hanging out on YouTube together. And so thanks for being here once again, you guys. Welcome back to the School of Multidimensional Intuition, which is wild because who knows? We might end up changing that name soon. I'm not sure. Maybe that's a bad idea, but come on in the room, everybody. We have kind of a maybe not a different thing, but we have some cool stuff coming up today. Aisha Brashe is going to be joining us from Cosmic Gateway, which has been a very interesting and often consumed source of online information. I've enjoyed a lot of her info, and so she's going to be popping in, I think, eventually here at some point. And we'll be doing a bit of a discussion. But in the meantime, thanks for showing up. We see a lot of cool faces here. Hello, Ascension Diaries. Hello, Cassandra. A Hopeful Art has returned once again. Ria, good to see you. Heidi Pop from Los Angeles. I wonder how it's going out there in the wilds of LA. I'll admit, part of me, okay, this is a vulnerable admission, you guys. Part of me actually genuinely misses LA. I have never been an LA hater, or rather a California hater. I grew up in California, but I was one of those people that grew up a few hours south. I'm going to try to say the name, in San Diego. There we go. That's a good sign. We have full enunciation today. I grew up down south in San Diego, and I was I was a Los Angeles hater for most of my life. Every time I would go there, I'd be like, oh God, I hate it here. But when I moved to Los Angeles, I just had a very different view of it. And yes, it was a very harsh environment, very strange place to be, all kinds of predatory frequencies and parasitic energies. But I do sort of miss it. It was a cool place. I felt comfortable there. And so maybe after the sort of technocratic neo-Nazi California state government goes away, we'll definitely be returning, because I in my heart, it's a cringe moment. In my heart, I'm definitely a Californian. Some of the Floridians around here will hear that and instantly hate me, but it's okay. And so thank you for coming back once again. Oh, we got LSD, Let Self Die here. Whoa, nice. I love that. I love the screen name. Thanks for showing up, LSD. For real. Thank you for being a part of our live stream today, LSD. And thank you, Heidi. Yeah, totally. Honestly, I sort of enjoy LA. We will definitely return to the California zone once again. But good to see you guys. And so Thank you for being back once again. Like I said, we got Aisha Brashe rolling in. But before we do that, we got a couple announcements. As a lot of you guys already know, it's been talked about ad infinitum over and over and over again. But we're going to be gathering in a couple weeks at the Secret Space Conference in Grafton, Illinois. It's May 2nd through 5th. I've talked about it extensively. We'll probably talk about it a bit more because I think we're going to do a roundtable in the coming weeks with a couple people from there as well. But please do, if you're able to grab a ticket, we absolutely do so. There's day passes available, which is a pretty cool thing. I love that there's day passes available because there's been a lot of things that I've wanted to go to in the past that were very accessible. And I was like, damn, man, you got to pay all this money and go there for all these days. And sometimes you just want to go for one. Or maybe there's just a few things you want to take part in, and so you guys can get a day pass. And you can also get a live stream ticket, although I'm not going to be on the live stream. A bunch of other really cool people are. But yeah, check us out. I pray that you can join us if you are able. We're going to be in Grafton, Illinois, just a couple weeks, just a couple, or maybe 3 weeks. I don't know. My concept of time is bad. It could be next week or it could be next month, and I'll be like, what day is it? Sunday? Okay. And so that's kind of the nature of time. That's kind of the nature of how time's flowing for me right now. But good to see you guys. Before we get started, let me know if you have any questions. Let me know if you have any questions today. I'm going to try to take a bit more questions from people. Sometimes it's like I always say, let me know if you have questions, and then we don't necessarily get to them. But yeah, let us know if you have any questions in the meantime about multidimensionality, our experiences, really anything else weird or angular that we're trying to understand about the world. And I say this, I'm not a person that has a lot of answers. Every now and then we're able to figure things out together. And so, let us know if you have any questions. So another thing coming up, very, very cool, May 22nd, we did, or rather on May 22nd, we're beginning the next round of multidimensional tarot, rather the art of multidimensional tarot and energy reading. It's been a really cool class that we've done. This will be the 3rd year in a row, and I'm really looking forward to doing it. So you guys can check that out from the start. You can go to rememberyourmission.com, and we're going to be doing a 5-week journey of learning to unlock your ability to read cards. Whether you want to read cards to understand relationships, people, what do we really do in multidimensional tarot? We understand our timeline, our sort of positioning on the multi-dimensional game board, this thing that we're all operating on, the sentient living earth grid. And we learn about chakras, meridians, how to diagnose energy blockages. Tarot is incredibly helpful for that. How to understand elements of your timeline and really the motivations of people in your world, but really for the process of healing and expanding ourselves in this strange world. And so I'm excited to see who's going to be joining us in the coming weeks. And so please do check that out. Rememberyourmission.com. Thank you for putting the links in the chat there, Cassandra and Liz. Good to see you guys. And so, yeah, I guess, Cheryl says Sedona in 2 weeks and Grafton in 4. Cool. Yeah, I think there's an event going on in Sedona as well. I'm definitely not cool enough to get invited to anything in Sedona. Like one time it happened, and I don't know if that'll be happening again. Definitely. You never know. Sedona's a great place, and so have a great time out there. And so I'm gonna show something to you guys. So I have been historically resistant to sort of selling products or things or sort of items when I go to events, and I kind of broke that. We sort of broke that trend last year, actually at Sedona, no less. We broke that trend last year at the Family of Light gathering, and I started to bring in some 3D printed items. We had some glow in the dark stuff that we were creating at that time, and that was very cool. What's wild is between that and Camp Disclosure, literally all of the things that we had made were purchased. So it actually taught me that people were kind of interested in what we were creating and kind of putting out there on a physical level. And so there was even a few people that emailed me afterward trying to buy them, and unfortunately I had printed them all and they were all gone. And so this year we're not going to be doing the 3D printed items. Unfortunately, we're not bringing any 3D printed stuff, but we are bringing something cool so that you can kind of hold the things that you're going to be picking up there. And for the first time ever, we created these, those old school tote bags that people would carry around. We made some of those, you guys, And so we're going to be bringing these along. These are the little tote bags that I had created for our merchandise at events. And so for those of you guys that want to check these out, to some of you guys, it might be totally cringe and you're like, oh my God, I don't want that. But for other people, you're going to be like totally into it. And so we created these cool little bags. And I'm probably blocking myself from the mic, but I wanted to hold this up. And so we're gonna have these available. Very, very minimalist designs. But for those of you guys that are going to be there, I hope that you'll pick up one of these cool tote bags that we created. Probably, who knows? Maybe we made too many. Maybe we didn't make enough. But I'm actually excited to have those because I actually thought they were pretty cool. And so cool. A couple people are into it. Other people will be like, no, but you know what I mean? It's like, it was either that or, like a bunch of crystals and, I love our community, but it's like everybody's selling something. And so I've been one of those people that, it's not so much what we're selling. We're selling experience. We're selling multidimensional information. We're selling how to unlock the versions of you and the stuff that you're working with and like what you're doing and your ability. So it takes many different forms. But for those that are interested, that are going to be at the Secret Space Conference, we have a couple items that we're bringing. So we're going to be bringing these out here. And it is literally kind of like the 3 rules that I was given when this strange journey started. Number 1, you are a multidimensional being. Number 2, you came here with a mission. Number 3, it is time to remember. And so we are on we're on a very dedicated path of remembering right now. And so, yeah. In the meantime, I'll say it again. Let me know if you guys have any questions. I think Alicia's going to show up at some point. I don't know when that's going to happen, but in the meantime, we're going to be kind of ranting and sort of hanging out. And so, then thank you, Rob Livingston. Thank you for being here. Through our third eye, we are co-creating with Source. How does that feel, loved ones? Thank you. I appreciate your enthusiasm. And I want to ask you guys a question. How is your dream world right now? What has your dream world been like for the past week or so, for the past few days? Let me know in the chat. Let me know how your dream world has been. For me, the dream world has been a very, very bizarre and strange place. Not a traumatic one. I don't know why. Maybe I'm blessed. Maybe I'm on a different, wavelength. Maybe I'm in a weird, bubble within my own consciousness, but I have not had too many traumatic dream experiences. But I have noticed, I would say just over the past maybe 2 weeks or so, just a massive shift in stuff that's going on in the dream realm. A number of visitations, a number of kind of going places, very, very vivid realms. And I have a feeling that it is part of a collective kind of activation of something that's going on within our collective kind of astral space, the place in which we all interact, which it's a fact. And, some of you guys are going to be very, very aware of this. It's going to be very apparent to you. But for other people, we're still unlocking that. For those that are working with the third eye, for those that are kind of detoxing the body, I have a feeling that the dream world has been pretty wild. I actually talked about it, right at the start of this weird dream wave. I think it was about a month or so. Actually, yeah, it's been about a month. And I believe, let's get ready for a little bit of a cringe moment here. I believe not too long ago, we got taken up to the moon. By we, I mean myself and Denora. I had one of those moments, one of those dreams that was so incredibly, shockingly vivid. It was so shockingly vivid that it was like I was woken up in the middle of the night, and it was like as if I literally got up and I was standing there in my underwear, you know what I mean? Or like, like whatever you wear when you're in bed. And it was like I got up and this voice in my head was like, you cannot go anywhere like that, put some clothes on. And so here's the thing, I don't remember putting clothes on. I do not remember putting any clothes on, but it seemed as though within a few moments of that, we were sitting inside what looked like kind of an office. It was a little bit it felt like kind of like a 1970s or maybe 60s style. There was like almost like a pleather chair that we were sitting on, like this sort of office thing. It had 2 seats. So I was sitting and Nora was sitting to my right. and we were sitting in this space just kind of looking at stuff. There was like an old kind of like a desk or like a table like thing in front of us, almost like if someone was gonna, in hindsight, it's almost like if somebody was gonna fill out paperwork or something. There was like this desk or this counter in front of us, and in front of me, a little bit to the right. And some of you guys are going to pick this up. If you want to watch the left eye, a lot of you guys already know this. For other people, they get weird when you do eye stuff. But for a lot of us, one of the ways in which you'll continue to unlock your telepathic abilities is by looking into specific energy portals in the body. One of the easiest energy portals to connect with are the eyes, namely the left eye. For some people, I've noticed it will also be the right. But for me and a lot of others that I've encountered, you'll notice the left eye will change over time. Sometimes people's left eye will get bigger. Mine gets a little wonky from time to time. A lot of the people that I've worked with also have that. But anyway, going back to this dream, we were sitting in just almost like this weird office, sitting there. I don't recall, that there was any particular smell. I don't recall that there was any particular fear, but it was like we were sitting in a waiting room. And I was looking at the door. It was a little bit to my right in front of me. There was a desk, and it was a little bit off center. So the desk was kind of over here. And in front of me to the right was just like a regular door. It had like a regular door handle. And I looked very old, maybe even a little bit dirty. And we were sitting there. And in my mind, I was like, so this is the moon? This is the moon. And it wasn't like some awestruck moment. It wasn't like this, like incredibly like, oh my God, it was nothing like that. In fact, it almost felt like it was just waiting. It was in a waiting room. And so I noticed somebody in the chat, there was Ascension Diary, said LOC action. Who knows? Maybe I have gone to great pains not to sort of, try to insert myself into the narrative of sort of, a multidimensional space bizarreness, and kind of allowed it to just take place as it happened. I've noticed the more that I've tried to, recreate or grab onto whatever that frequency is, the more it slips away. And so I've just kind of learned to kind of, just allow things to sort of unfold in their own strange way. And sure enough, within the dream space, we were sitting there, and it's like one of those dreams. I know a lot of you guys have these where it's so vivid, it's so real that it's almost like you're awake and you're there and you're in it. And then the very next day I wake up, and we're doing life. And honestly, one of the signs that will tell me, a lot of you guys will have your own version of this, but one of the signs that told me that, maybe, I say it very, very gently, that maybe something happened, was it's like the next day I couldn't really open my eyes all the way. It's almost like, you like run a mile in your sleep and you wake up and you're like, yeah. And it's like things feel kind of puffed up. And it was like my face felt kind of puffed up too, in this sort of weird way. And, lo and behold, I heard a couple other people talking about it. And also another thing that I had noticed was it was right around the time that some other people, I'm not gonna do the name game, but there's been some other kind of more, positioned people within what we might call a disclosure community, if you want to call it that, that were also talking about strange events with what some people call arc ships, or I actually saw them more as like a time capsule that sort of arrived on Earth. And what they were talking about was how there were many of them scattered all over the world. Somebody said there was one in Ukraine, there's one here. And it really helped put a face or a name or an explanation to something that I had been perceiving for quite some time. And one of those felt like a structure that was, well, I'll just say it. One of them was off the coast of Alaska, kind of in between, like Alaska branches up and there's like Russia on the other side. There was one smack dab right there, kind of like a very large oval shape that had been pressed into the earth. And it looks like it had happened so long ago that the rest of the terrain had been placed over it, meaning like it's almost like if you were to dive underwater in that region of the world, you would just see like the underwater realm. And so there was a structure that I was shown there, and it looked like it had what looked like a series of tunnels. And I want to call it tunnels, but I have to say within the dream space and I will tell you how I got to this conclusion. It was after hearing about these things, it helped me remember certain dreams that I had had. And I think this was in 2020, actually, when I first became aware of them. And what it showed was almost like tributaries, on a river, how it'll kind of splinter off and there's all these little streams. And what it looked like was that there was streams that were coming from this structure that was off the coast of Alaska. And it was kind of spreading over a little bit south. It looked like they curved down south. And so, who knows what part of Alaska it is? I don't know. I think there was a guy on the stream, or a guy in the chat last week from Alaska. He would probably know a lot more about it. But it looked like they were reaching over to what I believe to be one of the pyramid structures that's in Alaska. And so it was one of those experiences that, or rather, reading about what other people were discovering about it helped me figure out that it was something that I was viewing was actually real, or rather I was seeing a version of it previously. And so lo and behold, like a lot of people, as we sort of open up our own, individual kind of remote viewing abilities. And just so you guys know, remote viewing, a lot of you guys know this already, is a literal human ability. It's not a superpower, you know what I mean? It is one of the abilities that all ensouled humans have. And so as I continue to unlock that and work with it, and for me, maybe I was blessed, maybe I was weird, maybe it was just a strange thing. It was really easy for me to begin the process of remote viewing. Almost like when I started this strange timeline of doing psychic work, it was like a switch turned on and boom, we just started doing it, which for some people, feels disingenuous, but it's literally my reality. And so anyway, rewinding back to the experience, I started to try to tune into these structures, to these things. And at first, I thought that I had found one within my own searching. And a lot of you guys have already heard of this supposed base or, structure off the coast of Malibu in California. And I believe that could be one of them. But what I was shown was actually something that it's very hard to pinpoint the location, because when I was able to view it, it wasn't so much a location, it was me seeing the actual structure. So I can't tell you exactly where it was, but I do have a pretty good estimate that it's in between the edge of California and Hawaii, which, I don't know, what's that? It's like thousands of miles, right? So, we're kind of eyeballing it. But what I perceived there was something almost identical, nearly identical to the one in Alaska. The one off the coast of California, or rather in between there and Hawaii, felt different. It feels like it had different energy. It felt like if there are beings there, it had different beings. And so from there, I started to kind of feel into it. I started to kind of look around and in asking the questions and doing my own process of searching. I also found one that I believe is what I was told within the search in my own mind was that it was in the Indian Ocean. And so within the Indian Ocean was another one that I believe is very, very active. I believe it's been visited. I believe there's a frequency coming out of it. And then there was another very, very strange experience that actually happened to both me and my wife, Honora, way, way back years ago. Well, it's not really way back, but I think this was in 2018. When we had both had a very, very intense experience of being taken into a place. It was an underwater facility. I do believe that it was made out of an organic material, or rather, the surface of this facility was made of organic material. And so, honestly, if I want to get technical, this is going to be really weird for some of you guys. And the reason why I'm going on this rant is because our guest has not turned up yet. And so I'm just going to talk about weird stuff for a while, just so you know. Just so you know, we're gonna talk about some experiences that we've had over the past few years. And so it felt as if this structure was made of, get ready, weird term, it was like starfish skin. It was like literal biological material that was covering the outside of this structure. And it was very much like starfish skin. I have to say, I do believe it was like some biological, flesh that was, created to cover up this, whether it was a structure or maybe the structure was a living one, because a lot of the things we've learned about, extraterrestrial craft or the way they'll sort of move is through organic beings that actually serve as carriers for, other forms of consciousness. And so there was a lot of weird stuff that happened in there. I believe that what happened when we went into that was we entered a simulated environment, some form of almost like a holographic testing space. Within that testing space, there was a number of halls, rooms, places, and I will be honest with you, I actually felt that I was trapped within there. I felt that a piece of my consciousness had sort of been trapped within there, and within that experience, I actually lost my ability to move. And it was like I had been placed in almost like a stasis chamber that just felt like I had no control over my body. I had no ability to move, but I was able to observe that I was trapped within a place. Um, and the honest to God truth is that my wife, Nora, actually, it seemed as though she was able to change herself from the form of a human into something that was almost like a molecule or a single celled organism, and was able to leave that space. And in the process of it, in the process of sort of leaving this underground, so this underwater structure, I do believe that we actually burned or destroyed the fragment of ourselves that were contained within that space. I believe that it was burned, it was incinerated, or rather, that was my portion of the experience. One of these days, I'll get a Nora on a live stream, and we'll have her tell you guys the real story of it, because I was not nearly as lucid and conscious of what she was during that experience. But it was one of the early, like, really bizarre and formative multidimensional experiences that we had together. And it sounds cheesy, but to this very day, it's one of those ones that, when I started hearing about the arc ships, which are talked about by a lot of people. If you still follow Michael Salla, he's been going into him a lot. We're going to bring someone on the show in the coming weeks, Ileana. She goes by Ileana, the Star Traveler. She's going to talk a lot more about him. But I believe that they are sort of living libraries. They are structures that house a number of forms of extraterrestrial technology. To me, they felt like time capsules in which there's a number of, beings or sort of samples of beings. I think what is essentially contained within them is almost like the history of our planet that has been contained in certain places. And what it appeared to be happening was that they were kind of lighting up. And so when I was able to view what this was, and it was really easy for me to perceive the one that was in the Indian Ocean, and also maybe kind of the one that was off the coast of California. But what I observed was that there was almost like a beam of light, coming out of these structures. And it was something that was accessible. And so anyway, the reason why I'm going on and on about this strange stuff here today is that I believe that us as a collective, if you're one of the people that's here watching this live stream, I believe it's because you have the ability to start tapping into these things, to start kind of finding them within your own way. I believe that we're coming to the stage as multidimensional beings where we no longer really need to rely upon the disclosure mouthpieces, those that, position themselves in a place of, celebrity to kind of dictate to us what's really going on in the multidimensional realms. For those of you guys that follow the law of one, or if you're even vaguely familiar with it, and if you've heard of the concept of the social memory complex, I believe we're entering the stage in which we are all able to tap into and realize the very same things. We're all able to view those very same things, and we're essentially able to figure out what's true and what is not true. And so, anyway, start practicing remote viewing. We might do a little bit of a remote viewing exercise if Alisha doesn't show up. And so who knows? It's a possibility. We haven't had anyone not turn up. We haven't had anybody not turn up yet, but today might be the day. Anyway, let me know if you guys have any questions in the meantime. Thank you for your comments. Thanks, everybody. Heidi Pop says, totally agreed. Hopefully you're agreeing that we have the ability to tune in and tap in and kind of figure out what's true and what's not real and what's bullshit and what's actually happening, because it is definitely real. That said, there was a lot of comments I had been reading within, the sort of disclosure type stuff about this supposed arc ship that's in Ukraine. And that's a fun one. I know I'm definitely going to ping the sort of AI listening device when we start talking about Ukraine. But there was a lot of talk about how maybe that was one of the reasons why there was a conflict over there. And as far as I can tell, that's not true. However, I do believe there's a number of secret technologies and things. And if there is one, it does look like it's positioned within the water off the coast, I think, south of there. It's not something that is within the land. It's actually underwater. And it does look like, if it is what I believe it is, it's a structure that's actually within a cavern. that has water on top of it. So it's underneath the ocean. And within that space is maybe what, we would call one of like the caverns or the elements of, the supposed honeycomb earthing. But it does look like there is a structure, at least from my very, very limited viewpoint. It does feel like there is actually some form of a multidimensional structure off the southern coast of Ukraine. But it feels as though it is not only under the ocean, but it's also encased in a cavern that's surrounded by water. So it's almost as if someone were to physically enter it, they would have to not only, burrow underneath the ocean, but they would also have to then enter another water-filled cavern and then enter whatever this is. It feels very much like that was part of the design, that it was meant to be that way. But what I can tell you, or rather what I believe about it, is that people have been entering and leaving these structures regularly. I think that for some of us, it's one of the places that we'll go when we'll have particular type of extraterrestrial encounters or multidimensional encounters. And I believe that they're accessible not through physical means, meaning that even if you did swim down there and you got in there and, knock on the door, there's literally nothing that will happen. It's something that you have to be in a fourth density state to enter into. And so I do believe that within Antarctica are a number of places where you can access these very arc ships or these very underwater or underground structures through portals, through, passageways. And so, yes, they are accessible, but I just don't buy into the idea that it's something that's causing a war, that it's something that has anything to do with the world conflict, that it's something that, anyone's able to just dig down there and access. And so I want y'all to take that with a grain of salt, but that's been my experience. And so anyway, I'm looking forward to talking with Ileana about that in the coming weeks. That'll be on April 23rd. And so anyway, in the meantime, we're going to take a couple questions. Maybe there's a time difference or something. Maybe there's like a time change. But anyway, we don't even know if our guest is going to turn up today. And so, yeah, we will take a couple of questions. Angeline Sunrise, thanks for showing up. We're just kind of improvising at this point, you guys. Well, if you want to get technical, everything I do on a live is it's kind of an improvisational moment. But anyway, Angeline Sunrise, thank you for hanging out. She says, where and how to learn remote viewing safely. I would say at home by yourself or alongside other people. One of the first remote viewing experiments I ever did, and this was right before I started doing the work that I'm doing on a professional level. I would say this was in 2015. I've talked about it a little bit, but in 2015, I was sitting on Facebook in like a chat or, talking to this particular person who, later on they unfriended me, him and a lot of other people, made a very synchronistic departure from my timeline. But we did a remote viewing experiment. It was just a thing that we did. It was like, hey man, you want to try remote viewing? Okay, I'm going to remote view your room and you're going to remote view mine. And I was like, all right, cool. Yeah, let's just try it. And so it was kind of one of those things that I did not know I could do, but I remember just sitting there at my little desk at the time and closing my eyes. And for me, the way that it started was that I just asked in my head. I asked in my head and I was like, how, show me, I won't say the person's name, show me where they are. Show me where they are. And what I was able to see instantly was this sort of room. There was a bunch of cat litter. There was like a cat litter box in the corner. There was litter boxes on the floor, and there was one near the door. There was a big pile of stuff in front of the window. There was what looked like a bunch of like CDs or DVDs or like all kinds of stuff like piled up. Honestly, it was kind of a mess. I'll just be real. It was like a mess. And I described it to this guy. I remember writing back to him within moments, just kind of typing it out. And there's this in the corner and there's kitty litter over there. And there's this, other stuff. There's a stack of something against the window. And it was like, I could even see the window, you guys. I could see the window and the sort of buildup of dust in the windowsill, which is a very, very bizarre thing. And honestly, it was without even trying. And so it kind of freaked him out. And I could tell it was just a weird thing. He never told me what he saw. It was just like, whoa, you saw my room, boom. And then, we kind of lost touch a little bit after that. But I would say get with a person. And I have a feeling maybe because I have this strange idea, our guest is not going to show up today, but so we might do a little bit of an experiment. But I would say get with another person. Allow yourself to go into a state of meditation, which for a lot of us is a hard thing to do. If you're not a regular meditator, it can be a practice that you'll have to sort of pick up and learn to quiet the mind. But really, I think what it is about is sort of pulling all of the external data away from your mind's eye. Allowing yourself to come into a state of what we would call a clean slate, where there's literally nothing there, where it's almost like you're staring at a blank canvas. And then for me, what I would do is just sort of try to grab onto the person or the place, or if you're practicing controlled remote viewing, you might only have a coordinate or a number. So I know that other people have done remote viewing experiments with, like a piece of paper or a picture in an envelope. But whatever the target is, I would just sit there, and this is the crazy way that I do it. So I know there's real remote viewing teachers that can show you like really standardized techniques. I had a CIA, literally I had a, maybe not CIA, I had a government remote viewing training manual for a while that somebody had sent me. And what I do, and I also do this in my private sessions, is I would just tune into the person, and it's like I will take a really big breath in. It's like you're almost like you're trying to smell it. And I know for some people that's going to be like, what? But really, it's like I'll sit there and go, take a big breath of something, and then just see what you feel. See what shows up within your mind's eye. Notice what kind of smells, what kind of colors, what kind of symbology that you receive. In many cases, it's not going to make sense. You will feel or experience very vague structures. Sometimes you'll get a number. Sometimes you'll get a color. Sometimes you'll get something completely different. Sometimes you'll get a scene from your own daily life, which is really one of the things that happens when we start kind of weeding through the infrastructure within the mental body. But with practice, it is a thing that once you notice what's yours, you will then know what's theirs. And so what do I mean when I say what is yours? For those of us that are learning to do psychic work, for those of you that are learning to open up your intuitive abilities, knowing thyself is the most important thing. What do you really like? What do you really hate? How do you really feel about certain things? What are your emotional biases? What are you conditioned against? What are you afraid of? What are all of those things, the many aspects of self. If you know who and what you truly are, if you are aware of who and what and how you actually feel, you will know unequivocally when another energy comes in. Another way that I've practiced remote viewing, which who knows might be a very angular and strange way to do this, but when I lived in LA, it was a perfect place to do it. And I would just walk around neighborhoods at night, sometimes pretty late, but like we lived in a chill area, so like it wasn't that big of a deal. But I would literally walk around streets at like midnight, and I would just walk past houses and do the very same thing, like take a big breath in, and it's almost like this stream will hit you as you practice it, sort of like like you'll catch a whiff of something, but it's not a smell that you'll pick up. It's like what I noticed when I would practice that is that I would start getting weird scenes. It's like I would walk by someone's house, and I would just sort of take a breath in, and it's like all of a sudden I would see a person closing the medicine cabinet in their bathroom and like standing in front of the mirror in the bathroom. And it's not like I would see their face. It was like I would just observe, like, whoa, there's somebody standing in front of the mirror in their bathroom. Whoa, that's not mine. That's not me. What counter is that? What, it's like you will notice that you'll get these strange hits of data. And all kinds of weird stuff. One time I was doing that, and it was like somebody was putting on their socks. And I was like, "Whoa, there's a woman putting on their socks." Another place I remember, I would walk by and sort of take a really big whiff of something, and it was like I could see this sort of teenage Asian kid living in a house with his grandmother, and it was like I don't know what his deal was. I think he was watching TV or something, but it was like instantly, boom, right there. And so the reality is, because a lot of those tests and a lot of those experiments were things that I was not able to seek. That I was not able to seek confirmation for, that we don't actually know. We don't actually know what it was about. We don't know what it was. But what it taught me was that once you know yourself and you're able and willing to start, working with other frequencies, that you can develop your senses to the extent that you'll pick up other things. You'll pick up other frequencies. Some of them will be in the past. Some of them will be in the future. But anyway, try it. Get with a friend. Get with somebody on, a live or not alive, get with somebody on a chat and do a little bit of a remote viewing experiment. See how it goes. And so anyway, in the meantime, we're gonna check out some of your comments. Thanks for showing up, you guys. This is just gonna be like a ranting and like hanging out session here today. So we're just gonna hang out. It's gonna do a live stream, or we're just gonna do a regular live stream, and who knows, we might even do some readings, just because that's a thing that I do. But anyway, thank you, Laylan. She says, my friend is new to his awakening and received communication from 3 ET beings. He's worried he doesn't know how to discern their intentions. Do you have advice I can pass on to them? Well, hopefully, I would say number one, if he's able to communicate, or if he's able to kind of grab onto these beings, or if he can enter a state of meditation where he feels comfortable to kind of like tune in and kind of grab onto their energy. Sometimes it'll be really easy to do. Sometimes it'll feel like you're just playing a game inside your mind, which is a thing that happens to a lot of us when we start remote viewing or tuning into non-physical energies. You'll feel very much like you're sort of in an internal, in an internal make-believe place of imagination. And sometimes you will be. But as you learn to refine it, as you learn more about yourself, as you sort of detox the body, as you work with energy centers, you'll start to find that you can find beings and you can find things. But anyway, kind of getting back to the essence of your question, Leyland, is I would ask him to lean into the emotional feelings, the emotional qualities. What does he feel when he tunes in with these beings? What was the emotional quality of the experience? Was it one of fear? Was it one of rage? Was it one of negativity? Was it or was it something different? Was it one of love? Was it a whole different, feeling? In my opinion, the empathic resonance of those experiences will often tell you a lot more about what it was, rather than the information or the imagery that comes through. So I would say, if you want to discern their intentions, go into a meditation, grab onto whatever you can, and you can sort of ask your guides within your mind, which for some people is very hard to do because we haven't really been taught how to tune in with the the energy of our guides, how to tune in with other stuff. But I would say ask him to return there and just see what he feels, and then don't judge it. If you really want to do it right, you could start writing things down. Don't judge the content of what you write down, but just see what comes up. In some cases, there may be nothing. I have to be real, because I've had a lot of weird experiences like that, where I tried to, write stuff down, or I tried to, record it later, and it was just a weird dead end, and nothing really kind of showed up. And then in other cases, you'll notice this weird little door starts opening up, and images or remembrances will come in, or pieces of that experience will show up. And so I would ask him to just lean into it once again, see what he discovers in his own way. And honestly, I don't know if that's helpful, but there's one thing I can tell you, is that when I started this strange journey, and when I had this crazy crown chakra opening in 2015, one of the first things that happened for me within days of that was that I started to wake up within the dream space, and there were 3 beings in the room with me. I think several times, actually. But it wasn't that I could tell who the beings were. It wasn't that I could see who and what they were. I could see their shape, and it sounds really dumb, but it was like 3 hooded beings, like they had hoods over there. So I could, what I mean? It's not like there's a face where I can go, oh, I know you, but I can tell you that the one on the left. So I was kind of laying on this couch at the time, and I would sort of wake up, and I would look over to my left, and the one on the left was a bit smaller. The one in the middle was a bit taller, and the one on the right was kind of in the middle, in between, the heights, and they would just be there looking at me. It was, in the beginning, it was one of those things where, had they have not had this sort of tone or this feeling that they knew me, it was like, otherwise I would have been afraid. I would have been totally freaked out. But yeah, so that was one of the first things that happened to me. And I would venture to say, without knowing any more about it, it's probably a legitimate experience that this person had. And I've also met reptilians in that space, and I'm one of those people that I don't know how, because I know everyone's talking about, the Draco Alliance and the Orion group and how they're laying waste to the Earth plane and, doing all this chaos and drama. For some reason, when I felt in contact with those beings, it was nothing like that. In fact, it was the literal opposite of fear. It was the opposite of negativity, and it felt like they knew me, which is a weird one. Come to find out, I've had some, many, I think a lot of past lives in Orion. You guys have heard me rant around about Orion before, which we can also talk about again. But anyway, it is definitely a thing that happens. And so I hope that answers your question a little bit. We're just going on a little bit of a rant here. I'm going to click over on Facebook real quick. I see some messages coming in. And so, yeah, Alisha might join us. She might not. We don't know. I think they had a little bit of time difference there in Australia, which it's a thing. As our daylight savings time changed over here, I noticed a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was 3. I don't know when did our time change, you guys? I don't know. But the time changed here in the US recently. And I noticed that all the clients I had in Australia were an hour late for the whole week. And so I think that's a thing. As America changes our time zones, shit gets weird. And so we're not going to fault her for it. Thanks, Alisha. Maybe she'll show up. Maybe not. But anyway. And so, yeah, thank you. I saw another question coming in there. Thanks for hanging out, you guys. This is just random fun we're having here today. Thanks, Rebecca Zane. Thanks for showing up. Would you do a similar process for a dream? My friend and I have been trying to visit each other's dreams, but it hasn't worked out yet. Here's the thing, man. This is one of the things I was actually going to talk with our guests about today. I think that a lot of us are having dream contact. Well, I'll just say it because she's in the chat. I think Alexis was here. She's another one that somehow has showed up in my dreams in many, many different ways. And it's weird because at least in my dream space, it's like in many cases, it's like we're riding in cars or we're riding in buses or we're with a group of people and I'll look over and I'll be like, oh, so-and-so's here. So it's not like we have these experiences alongside each other. It's like I will view other people within the dream space. There's another person that I showed up a bunch of times. She makes wands. I won't say her name here, but she showed up somehow, and I was like, "Whoa, I know you!" In this space, there have been a number of them, and so I would say set out an intention before you go to bed with that person. One of the ways that I've had good luck with connecting in the dream space is by actually writing something down by hand. And so one of the things you can do before you go to bed, in my opinion, it helps very, very greatly if you can write it out by hand. But you'll literally just write it out by hand. And it's a very simple thing. It's a very simple question. And you'll say, my intention is to connect with so-and-so or whoever it is. You can formulate your own statement, however you want to say it. But I wouldn't add too much to it. Don't make it like this laundry list of wishes or desires or like requirements. Just say, my intention is to blank. Whatever your intention is, and you can put it right next to you. Some people might say, put it under your pillow. I don't know. I'm not one of those people that can put things under my pillow. I'll sort of roll around and, I'll feel it. I don't know. It'll get kind of weird, but I would say set an intention before you go to bed, have both people write it down. And then just see what occurs and understand that I think for a lot of us, there's a lot of hits and misses, and it's a process when you're learning to connect psychically with stuff. Be ready for false positives. Be ready for kind of, weird disconnections of that energy. Be ready for it to be kind of bumpy and strange, and give yourself time to kind of sink into it. You might have to do it many days in a row. And you might have experiences where one person will have a really beautiful meeting and the other person will be like, what? I didn't feel it. I didn't get it. Which is also a thing that's happened to me. A lot of people have come to me saying, you were in my dream and you were helping me with this or that. And I'm like, oh, really? Okay, cool. And so, one person might not feel it, but I would say continue to experiment with it. And even if it doesn't work, understand that it is an absolute literal truth that you have the ability to connect non-physically with people. I think that as we continue to go through the collective awakening process on Earth, it's going to happen more and more and more. And so try it out, see what happens. There are blockages that will stop us within the energy body from kind of reaching out. One of those is very, very well known. It's the concept of heavy metal toxicity. That is a big one that will literally slow down the operability of your third eye. It'll shut things down for you. And so, but yeah, detox the body, express your emotions. Don't hold anger in the body as you go to sleep. I believe as we hold anger when we go into the dream space, you'll sort of experience it as sort of echoes within your internal experience when you go into that astral realm. And so, yeah, just see what happens, but understand that you absolutely can. And so we got another cool comment. What's up, Matt Adams? Good to see you. Very, very genuinely good to see your face in this strange realm. He says, I had some friends that focused on a symbol, and each person focused on it and intended that they would meet in a space, and each person in the group showed up in the astral. Totally. That's a very successful experiment. And because I know a little bit about Matt Adams, I guarantee you, Matt, you're definitely one of those people that will show up, as I drool on myself here, that will show up within that astral space. And yeah, that is literally real. If you can get a group of people all together and kind of unify their intentions, oh my Lord, something will definitely take place. Like I said, it does not necessarily happen on that day in the time that you desire it to happen. Sometimes it'll be days later, maybe months later, but it is a literal fact. So many of us are in contact within the dream space, which is a literal whole other separate realm. It is a real place in which all of our consciousnesses are interacting, whether we're awake or whether we're asleep. And I'll just say it, Matt Adams is one of those people that I have known for a while, and you're very, very, very good at reaching out in the astral space. And so, yeah, Thanks for showing up, my friend. Self-Mastery Super Show. What's going on? I like the name of your title. Haha, I have the same ongoing experience with a mutual psionic master friend. Always have epic fun together. Yeah, that's the dude, that is a real thing. Lean into it, you guys. And if you're not one of those people who is having dream experiences with other people, and let's get brutally honest. Sometimes you guys, they'll be really weird. Telepaths, you'll know instantly what kind of weirdness I'm talking about. That is also an experience that will take place, and that is also part of the phenomenon of connecting psychically within that space, is that all sorts of strange things can happen. And in my belief and experience, as we go through the process of learning to acclimate ourselves within the astral realm, or what we would call that sort of astral dream space, it seemed like in the beginning I had a lot of weird experiences with people, all kinds of crazy stuff, all kinds of strange, we could call them rendezvous. And once again, you guys are getting what I am picking up. And what I've determined was that for a lot of us, as we go through the stage of conditioning ourselves to experience one another in those places, that you're going to have kind of currents, or sort of, yeah, maybe I guess we'll use the word currents of energy that will need to run their course. Suppress things within your psyche, within your own internal realm, that as you allow them to play out, as you allow them to run their course, after a time, you begin to experience people's energy in a different way. Whereas, let's just say it, and like in the beginning, you'll have all kinds of weird angular experiences, some sexual, some bizarre, some will be battles, which is weird because lately I have had a couple strange dreams that were literally battles with people, not people that I knew, but all kinds of strange stuff. I'll just kind of talk about one of them. One of them in particular was, I think, one of the times when I had visited what I believe to be some form of a holographic realm, or a space in which one is very, very lucid. I was very conscious that I was even in the dream, but I'm not one of those people that has lucid dreams where I was like, suddenly I can fly around and put my hand through my other hand and, do all that stuff. I have not been one of those people that can just, move into, astral space and start creating things. But I had been brought into like simulated environments. And this is, some of you guys, this is going to sound so morbid. Okay. I'm just going to say it, but it's, this is a thing that happens to some of us. But I would say not too long ago, I had one of those experiences where I was brought into almost like to me, it was a simulated space, and a human was brought in there. It was just a human person, not a person that we know, just a person, a random person. And what I was made to do, well, actually, I wasn't made to do it. The assignment was, I'll just say it, to to beat this person to death. And it was an accepted thing. It was almost like a training thing. And it was like within that space, there was some energy that was there. So that was like, okay, try this, try that, do this, do that. And it was almost like some sort of being or energy wanted me to experiment with my ability to cause damage within the astral space. And I'll be real, without going into crazy detail on it, we did. And what I determined after that, because I actually felt pretty triggered after that dream, because it was very, very viscerally real. I could feel like the impacts on this person, or this sort of being in that space. I mean, really, I could feel it, I could hear it. And what I observed was that I believe it was a simulated experience, because the sort of person or the being that I was forced to do that to did not react. It was almost like they were placed there, almost like a holder. Maybe we could call them a clone. Who knows? I'm just using terms, based on our, like collective consciousness experience. But within that space, that was what I was called to do. It sounds crazy. For some people, it's triggering. They'll be like, "What? You telling me you had dreams where you were forced to kill a person in a simulated astral environment?" Yeah, it was. It happened. All kinds of crazy things will happen, and other people will have that as well. Eric R in the chat says, "Beat up archons in the astral realm." Maybe that's what it was, but. I think a lot of us that are really actively traveling, and like conditioning the energy body and continuing to work on, both our distortions and also the really good things about us, is that there's times when you're going to have incredibly angular, strange experiences. I'm grateful that within the dream space, I have never been targeted. I have never had I've never been, deeply traumatized or whatever that is. And so, to me, I think it is a really good example of when we will enter a simulated astral environment and go through, a series of predetermined experiences. Sometimes I think they will test us within those spaces, but anyway, it's a real thing. It's a real thing. And so thanks, you guys. Let me know if you guys have any weird dream experiences. Quantum Soulbee says, "I've had dreams that seem more real than in my dreams in the past that seem more real than my awakened state." That is definitely a fact. What we're going to find as we continue through this human experience is that it's going to get more and more real, more and more real. And so, yeah, Leyland says, "Astral battles, schooling, and missions are way more common than discussed." Absolutely. I'm often careful about how I discuss those things, because what I have learned, at least in my experience, is that, you start talking about things publicly in a certain format, and like you will find that like people will get really weird about it. And I think on some level, even though I do this professionally, I still, I think all of us as humans sometimes fear the judgment of others, and we don't want to be seen in certain ways or be known to do certain things. And I think when it comes to the astral realms, those are things that are going to happen. And I think when we look at like the path of our incarnational cycles over the many lifetimes that we've had, we will be both the dark and the light. It's just part of our journey here. And so I think for me, that was one of the things that has taken place. And so thanks, you guys. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for listening to my strange rants. There we are. What's up, Cheryl? Some things in the astral must go or evolve. Yeah, Jamie Heskins, what's going on? I had a dream recently where I had a device that took me to the past, where I became male in armor with swords, where I was battling my way out to find my children that were in this reality. Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Some of the early stage DMT experiences that I had, that was definitely a factor of my early journey before I was even in the awakening stage of my life, before I knew about anything spiritual, before I was involved in any of that. I had some really, really intense experiences with DMT where I actually had to go into alternate realms and I had to literally fight my way out. It was like weird battles. There was stages where I literally lost my identity within that space. And it was like I had to somehow find who I was. I had to like remember, okay, this is me. I'm Matthew. I'm a human. This is my family. This is my life. That's my body. I had to somehow piece everything back together after having these weird journeys. And anyway, it is a crazy thing. It's a crazy thing, you guys. And the good news is our guest has joined us, and so it is all good. We're gonna bring her in just a moment. But LVC 73, what's going on? I have dreams where I have memories in that dream world that are not like real life memories. It's like a view of another timeline or an altar or something. It absolutely is. And I think like the reality of what those experiences are going to be uniquely different for each one of us. I think it kind of depends upon the content. It kind of depends upon the story about what happens. But what I've observed, at least in my life, is that it's like I will kind of click over into what I call a literal alternate timeline. And for at least for me, for the majority of the dream experiences that I've been having over the past few years, it's almost like as I go to sleep in this life, I'm waking up in another one. And that becomes the dream world. And there's been many times during my human day where it's like, as I'm going through that experience, it's like I will acknowledge the version of me within that dream world. And it's almost like I will realize that this life here that I'm in right now is kind of like the dream for the other version of me, which I think I'm explaining that in a very awkward and angular way. But it's like, I believe this life right here that we're experiencing right now. So whether you're at home or you're in your car or whatever you're doing, this may be the dream for the other version of you. And just like imagine that for a second. You're going to wake up in another body and you're going to be like, man, I had this weird dream. I was watching some weird live stream and I don't know, this guy was just ranting forever and ever. And like, I don't know what the hell that was. What a weird dream. And it's actually it's this very life right here. And so anyway, good to see everybody. Thank you for being here. The good news is our guest has arrived, and so Alicia's hanging out in the background, which is fine. It's a totally chill thing, because otherwise I'll just sit here and talk at people for a while. But we're gonna go ahead and bring her in. And so anyway, boom. Hopefully it's working. Thank you for showing up. Do we have audio connectivity?
Hello, can you hear me?
We can. Hello, howdy.
Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's totally cool.
I totally got the times wrong.
Oh, it's not a big deal at all. I was saying like prior that I noticed a lot of my clients in Australia after we did like the time change here, everybody was like an hour late. So I was like, oh, it's an Australia thing, which is weird because I see a ton of people in Australia. I don't know how that happens, but like somehow they find me and I'm like, whoa, awesome. Thanks you guys. But anyway, yeah, it's all good. How's it going over there?
Oh, it's wild. I don't to say the least. Yeah, no, it's really good to be here. And thank you to Alexis for alerting me that I was late while I was.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Alexis. I saw that kind of roll by in the chat and I was like, oh, really? Okay, cool. But yeah, anyway, thanks. And so just really, really quickly, because last time I did this with a guest, I totally spaced out on their bio. So I'm gonna go ahead and read your bio just because I'm trying to be more professional about how we do these live streams. Otherwise, I'll just rant on forever. But anyway, here we go. Aisha Brashe is the creator of Cosmic Gateway and New Earth Children. She has dedicated her life since a very young age to her soul's path and working with refining her psychic, intuitive, and healing abilities to work and support others in finding their path and deeper understanding to their soul's journey. Aisha works with a wide range of energy techniques and modalities influenced from her cosmic origins and star family to bring forth a range of advanced techniques to support people through ascension, retrieving soul memory, lost aspects, healing traumas through the multidimensional field, and humanity towards a new earth reality. In particular, Aisha's gifts are focused on those who are on a divine counterpart journey. That was actually where I first discovered your work, by the way. I think it was on Todd Medina's show a while back. But anyway, those who are on a divine counterpart journey and women going through various types of high vibration and interdimensional pregnancies. This work is based around the interconnectedness of galactic benevolent programs with children and the spiritual component of what is possible through divine connection between soul merging. Alicia's gifts spring from the wealth of her own unique life experiences involving lifelong contactee connection to the spirit and cosmic realms. Alicia's unique experiences have given her the ability to work with those she supports in divine partnership and New Earth children. Having an in-depth experience with both light and darker realms allows her access to healing and integrating soul fragments for herself and others. You can connect with Alicia via the links, which I should have probably put them in the chat, but you guys can check her out at Cosmic Gateway. I found you through Facebook, but anyway, thank you. That's a really good bio. It flows well. It was definitely not too long, but anyway, thanks for showing up. How's it going?
Yeah, pretty good. Thank you for reading that. It always feels very long when someone else reads it. You're like, oh.
It's all good. I think I did a show not too long ago where some lady like literally edited my entire bio and like changed it and flipped it around in a way where I was like, oh, okay. And so, you know, it's like, yeah, I'm totally used to like the awkwardness of long-windedness. But anyway, thanks for showing up to this here moment in time. I guess I'll start out with kind of like the awkward intro. I first discovered your work watching, I think it was Todd's show. It was a long time ago. It was back during the stage when, you know, like, there was just a whole different timeline. And to be honest with you, I don't really remember what it was about, but it was one of those moments, and I think everybody has them, where it's like you will hear a person's voice and then you'll see their face and you'll be like, yeah, I know. They know what they're talking about. And so lo and behold, I think it was like maybe a year or 2 years, who knows how long, because my concept of time it's horrible. It could have been last week, could have been 3 years. But I remember watching your interview on Journey to Truth. And I was blown away because you were talking about this sort of path of awakening and activation that took place for you in 2015. And it is literally, it was like right out of the textbook of my experience. And I was like, what? 2015, this crazy thing changed, and like a relationship changes, job change, life change. And suddenly we're in a different body on a whole other timeline. And it was like, boom. And it just blew my mind. And it was one of those things that, you know, taught me that we were part of a timeline or a group of individuals that activated at a certain stage. And so anyway, I have been ranting for like an hour now, and I would love to hear how did the awakening journey or this process of you turning into the being that you are today, how did that start for you?
Oh, well, I think 2015 was massively transformative. I think when I look back prior to that, there were changes and but it was 2015 that just the universe kicked my ass, really. It was a combination of a lot of things, but I think probably the most confronting aspect was when I became consciously aware of the contact that I was having all my life. And yeah, I went through a Kundalini sort of activation, and then boom, it just didn't stop, and everything was very accelerated, similar to the times that we're in right now. I do notice a correlation. So I think there must be a lot of other people going through a similar pathway right now for the first time. That's sort of how I see things. But I remember like going out, and there was just all this high energy working through me, and I'd go to these like gatherings near my house, and I'd rock up and there'd just be craft, just like full visible, and everyone would freak out, and I'd just be like, oh, isn't it pretty? Wow. You know. And and it was kind of at that point that I started having a lot of conscious contact. And I think my true journey as a energy practitioner kind of ramped up at that point, because I started downloading all these different techniques. And the galactic component's always been there since I was a kid, but not in the forefront. And I did have a moment of like, this is not my life. Like, I was dealing with like other spirit beings, and whoa, there's some blue beings in my room. This is trippy. Nice. Nice. So yeah. So I was kind of downloaded, I say a technique or a modality, And I was doing energy work on just people, friends, family, referrals. And I kept hearing telepathically, you're now channeling the Arcturian ray. I actually didn't know
Nice.
what that was at the time. And so I would tell my clients that, and they go, what's that? I'm like, I don't know. And then obviously, finding out a little bit more. And so I think that was, just a small snippet of what was happening in my life in 2015. And it has been a pretty wild journey since that point. Yeah.
Yeah. You say that you downloaded certain techniques or maybe modalities. That was also a very particular experience for me. And I don't know, maybe you're similar to this. Maybe you can tell us about it. But I was one of those people where it's like I didn't go to anyone's classes. I didn't have any, I didn't go to any workshops. I didn't go to a like energy healing seminar. In fact, I didn't even know that's what I was gonna do. I had literally no idea, which is sad because I'm like, now it's all I do. And I'm like, man, I had no idea that was coming. But it was like this literal switch turned on and suddenly like, oh, now I know this thing that's happening. And so how did that happen for you? Because I think that's a very particular aspect of a lot of our journey. Some of us will have this literal activation, the switch turns on and suddenly you just know things. How is that for you? What sort of things were downloaded into your field in terms of healing or the spiritual work that you're doing?
I think my journey was slightly different, but it activated at that time. But I'd like to say I've watched some of your interviews and I've been really taken by the work that you do because
Thanks.
you talk and I'm like, he's talking my language. He gets it. He gets it. So I think there's definitely a resonance there. But I think for me, I was dabbling in healing and energy from a kid. And then I kind of actively pursued that a lot of my life. And I did do like little workshops and courses here and there. But every time I did them, like I get there, I'm like, why am I here? I know this. Like, and not to disrespect, the teachings or the people, like there was always a reason for me being there. But I didn't necessarily feel as though I learned anything new. It was just a remembering. And so I think for about 10 years, I would work. So I was a secret agent. I worked a double life. I had a corporate job. And yeah, I was one of those people. And I was trying to apply what I would learn sort of very literally, and it wasn't working for me. I was like, and so it was a turning point for me. I was like, I'm just going to do what wants to come through me. I just want to play. And as I started to play, so over 10 years, I started to, bit by bit, it started to change this, change that. And, but it was 2015 that everything was like, it was almost like I had the training wheels taken off and all the bits and pieces that were kind of really minutely drop fed through to my consciousness was like building this, kind of a platform for what I would go in and do, because what I did back then and what I do now is just totally like day and night. You can't even, yeah.
I definitely identify with that. Yeah. Huh.
Yeah.
There was a stage in the beginning for me, like when we talk about how things have changed. I mean, like there was this thing in the beginning I was doing where I would pull energy out of like people's fingers and I would like throw the kitchen sink at them and be like, okay, so now we're going to do this thing. And now we're going to do this thing. And now we're going to do that. And now I'm going to change this. And now we're going to work on, it's like this. I had to like express every bit of like every single thing. And like, you will notice, and, maybe you've had a similar experience, but it's like, you'll notice during that journey how it's like pieces will leave, new things will come in, new understandings will come. And it's almost like, at least for me, the process of connecting with spirit simplified. Something became more streamlined and not necessarily more effective, mind you, because I think it goes back and forth for everybody. Sometimes we're on and we're like, boom. And other times, it's like we're climbing this sort of weird hill. But how have you noticed the sort of techniques that you came in with have changed in the years since?
I think it's become a lot more multidimensional and galactic, where perhaps in the beginning it was more based around past life, healing trauma. I think it's become more like fractal aspects and working within that and just weigh out stuff things that I couldn't even, my consciousness couldn't even, make up. Even if I know I'm very creative, I think I've got a wild imagination, but I come out of sessions and I'm like, whoa, that was something else. But I find now that it's more unique to the individual. So it's almost like I tap into what their body energy will receive the best. So I'm sure you probably find it similar. It's like there's not one session that's the same. Whereas maybe, 6 years ago, it was quite streamlined. It was like, I do this now, I do this now.
Totally.
Yeah. Whereas
So
now it's like a lucky dip. I don't know what I'm going to get when
totally. Yeah, I feel very, very much the same way. There was another question that I was going to kind of drop in there, but I didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
No. Okay. Well, actually, here comes a very, very different one, because oftentimes this is like what really the whole point behind this sort of weird show that I'm kind of doing now is that I wanted to bring people that I have observed as doing a particular type of work, or this is a cheesy term that I use, the multidimensional trigger pullers, those of us that are actually out there doing it. Because what I've noticed about our spiritual soul group, or whatever you want to call it, is there's a lot of people that are talking. There's a lot of talk. There's a lot of like, and now the Arcturians are this, and next week we're going on the gold standard, and don't worry, Trump's still in charge, and and it's like med beds, and it's like you'll see the sort of mouthpieces of our sort of like community are just talking a thing, and it's like everyone's talking, and then you'll see other people, and I'm not going to try to differentiate who's who and what's what, but I notice other people, and you'll sort of hear their voice, you'll see what they do, and you'll sort of grab onto an element of realism. And I think you're definitely one of those people where it's like you will look at you will hear the voice, you will feel the energy, and you're like, okay, there we go. And so, and here comes the question that I was going to ask. There it is. Okay. One of the things that I had observed about you in the beginning, I think when in like some of the other videos that you had done, is you're one of those people that I think you have a very distinct extraterrestrial experience, or a connective portal through the eyes. There's literally sort of energy or codes, or like a literal transmission that comes through your eyes. And I think like at one stage I was like, there's like an Arcturian thing, or what we call Arcturians. And I think you probably figured out they don't even call themselves that, but it's like, they'll know we call them that. So it's like, okay, but also something that appeared very, very Syrian, or I call it Syrian for lack of a better word. In fact, almost more so that than anything else, but that could be me mislabeling stuff. And so the question is, throughout your experience, what sort of beings, or what we might call star races, or sort of elements of our soul family have shown up for you? What kind of stuff is going on?
That's such a vast question. Well, I would I would say, and thank you for the acknowledgement about the eye thing, because I am aware of that, maybe more so these days than I know now, when I'm in contact with people in person, I try not to make too much eye contact, because I know that sometimes
Yes,
people aren't ready for what my eyes will do, and I don't have control. So I'm like,
totally.
um, I would say the Arcturian was in that 2015. That was kind of like the gate opening for me, for sure. And when I had to go and do my research afterwards, because you get a name or a something, and you're like, what is that? And you
Mm-hmm.
go and you look. I was like, oh, well, that resonates in terms of who they are as they're portrayed. Since then, I get all sorts. Like, sometimes I don't even label or categorize, because I'm like, oh, there's that cute like purple being, and then there's that, there's so I know, and when I'm doing sessions, I will hear different star system names come through. But for me personally, um, there has been Syrian. There's definitely a Lyran component for
Mm.
sure. Um, and Vega has come up, and I
Mm.
don't do a lot of research, so like
Me
I
either.
can't rattle like, oh, it's da da da. It's just I know
Totally.
them as energy, more color. I work a lot with color, so it's like I the way that I determine different frequencies connected to star systems is based on color.
Oh,
Really.
interesting. What do the colors mean? Can you like give us a little bit of that? Like what have you discerned or noticed in the color spectrum?
Yeah, so if it's Arcturian, it's generally like this color.
Mm,
It can vary. This is just a general. If
totally.
it's Palladian, it's more like a purple. If it's Venetian or like Venusian or Vegan, it's kind of like a pink. Lyran is more like a gold frequency, or like a yellowy gold frequency. Mintaka or Mintakan is more of like a turquoise color. So
Oh,
you
thanks
know,
for mentioning that one. That's
yeah,
one of my personal favorites lately. But yeah.
likewise, yeah.
Ha-
So
Have you had experiences with sort of beings or frequencies or energies from Mintaka?
well, this is new for me too, and it's my soul sister Nat actually was the one that pointed it out. She's like, "Have you looked into this?" And I was like, "No."
Oh,
And I kind of dived into a little bit of a rabbit hole, and the resonance and the memory. Like started to have like images come through. Really, I was in the bath actually, and I was just being downloaded with
dude,
you know.
it always happens in the shower or the bath. No, for real. That's not, I'm the same way. I'll just be standing there and it's like, there's somebody talking. It's like the very, very similar. But anyway, so go on.
And do you washing dishes too?
Yeah, either that or like I'll be on a weird walk at night and it's like, no, I'm having a conversation. Or like I'll go to the gym. There's a little gym in our like apartment complex and I'll be sitting there and it's like, shh, this weird conversation starts. But yeah, there's a number of forms. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. So I do feel a really strong resonance there. I think that I've probably had a little bit of a sojourn there, for sure. And I think probably I haven't done one in a long time, but I do a session that I call star mapping, or I call it star soul mapping. But it's like I can sometimes a constellation will come forward in a person's forehead. It's
Whoa.
very hard to describe, but it's like I can read different soul fragments based on how that the formation of the stars on there. Yeah, it's like
Mm-hmm.
reading like a identity card galactically
Mm-hmm.
or something. Yeah.
Wow.
Um and I can kind of trace it. So it's like I like to find people's origins of like when they first came into a being form in this galaxy, and then like mapping it, you know,
Mm-hmm.
just to understand their gifts and abilities and their traumas and you know,
Wow.
yeah.
That's
So
incredible. Wow.
mm.
I'm sorry. Go on. I was just reacting.
Oh, yeah, no, I haven't. I've actually never done that for myself. Oh, actually, that's a lie. I have, but I've forgotten. And I think something to me, it kind of went Mintaka, Egypt. I feel like there was a drop in Egypt
Whoa.
at some point. And I'm not really sure if a lot of the people during Egypt's a big theme for me. It always
Mhm.
has
Me
been.
too.
And I reckon a lot of us literally just dropped in from like some other planet, and I don't think a lot of us were in human form or part in human form, not fully. And it was almost like I just see it like a ceiling, and we all just sort of dropped in at a certain point, and we're like, "Yeah, we're going to do some stuff here."
Totally. Whoa. Thank you for mentioning that. Just really quickly, I had very, very distinct connection with Egypt and Mintaka. And so I guess some of the people that have watched some of our live streams, they know I went on a big rants about it a few months ago, in which all kinds of Orion stuff was happening. And then as soon as I started talking about it, I tried to reach out to people and I wanted to go on people's shows and tell them about this or that. And it was one of those things where it's like, it just was crickets. Nobody would talk
Really?
to me. Nobody would talk to me. One person was like, yeah, let's talk about it. And what I learned very, very quickly after that was that those experiences were for me that I was meant to demonstrate the energy of Orion and not be a mouthpiece to go around saying, I'm talking about the Orion Council, because that's literally what it was. But within that space, it was them, or rather, it was me within the realm. Because I guess Mintaka, supposedly, what I was shown is not actually, it's not so much a planet, it's a realm. Now it's
Ah,
like a literal, it's a place that we will continue to go back to. but it had been a destination for many, many, many lifetimes, over and over and over again. So it's cool. You're the first person that I have met within this like community that's even mentioned the name Mintaka. And so
Ah,
very, very cool synchronicity, because it's been like the energy of Orion, and I guess we call them the Orion group or whatever kind of cheesy term you want to add on to it, has been a massive, massive piece of my journey, which is weird because all you hear is people going, "Oh man, Orion, it's negative, and there's all these negative beings," and it's like, how come I'm not getting that? I don't know. I think there's equal parts dark and light, but
I agree. And I think like I always, this is a point where I'm always trying to work stuff out. Like I'm always in deep contemplation about this, or, and I think I've come to a lot of conclusions over the years that like we all have different experiences. And sometimes not only are we having different experiences, different realities, but we're on different timelines too.
yeah.
So that's where it's like, you can't really diminish anyone's, experience or reality, because that's their reality. And I wasn't on that timeline, but okay, I'll listen. I'll be curious. But I agree with you. There is definitely, a lot of, especially Orion, have been tainted with a pretty negative brush, and I don't believe that that's full truth at
I
all.
agree. Thank you for saying that. For everyone else out there, if you're one of the people that made it to this strange live stream here today, it stands to reason that you've had many incarnations in the realm of Orion. At least that's what I was shown about my journey, that one of the aspects of my mission was that I was meant to redefine or help in the redefinition for us on Earth of what Orion really is. And so it's cool to hear you talk about it. It's cool to hear that you've been there. I think for a lot of us, we're going to be continuing to demonstrate it in the work that we do. And I think it's a place that we go back to time and time again. And one of the things that I was shown in that space when I was in a really crazy Orion stage a few months back was that one of the ways you'll find out is that it's like you can go outside and look at the night sky and notice where your eyes are instantly drawn to, that you will have an internalized homing beacon. And I can nearly guarantee a lot of people in the stream are going to go outside tonight and go, "Oh, I see those 3 stars, right? What? It's a thing." But anyway, yeah, the Orions.
Well, what a great conversation. I
Yeah,
think it.
totally. Okay, so here comes. I have tons of weird and kind of random questions, and they bounce all over the place. And so, one of the other things that has been very, very interesting about kind of your journey and the stuff that I've heard you talk about sounds like, at least what I pick up, experiences within breeding programs, experiences with, what we might call extraterrestrial pregnancies, or the ways in which they'll be put in and then taken out. And can you just take us through some of that? I know you have already talked about it a lot, but I find it very, very fascinating. Can you tell us about some of those experiences?
Yeah. Do you want me to talk in general or personal? I
You
mean, I
can
can
be
do
you
both.
can be as specific and weird or general as you like. I personally love it. Like the more people are willing to go into depth. So yeah, whatever you feel
Yeah.
like you'd like to share with us.
Okay. Well, I guess going back to 2015 was the beginning of what I call my interdimensional conception / pregnancy. I had no framework. Let me just preface, I had no framework for what was about to unfold. It came through a divine connection where I merged, and then all of a sudden my body started to morph into having all the symptoms of being pregnant. And that was so prior to that, that was when the Arcturians were coming. So I was definitely taken on board craft physically. I was waking up with scars and incisions on my stomach. And the way that I see it is that they were prepping me physically, energetically, to be able to go through this process to hold not only the physical vessels of children that wish to be birthed through me, but also energetically to hold that frequency is a big deal. Like it's, yeah. And so I just assumed, it, as weird as it was, that I was just going to go through a normal 9-month pregnancy and be done and birth some pretty spectacular beings, and that wasn't to be the case. And it sent me on a very dark night of the soul. That was where I kind of lost everything, only to realize that this was an ongoing process of energy and frequency, and basically being able to be a bridge from non-physical into physical, and to bring souls in. So this process and journey is still ongoing for me, as it is for many other women. But I have a lot of prophetic dreams, and I do a lot in the realms, and I get a lot of information from that. And I've always known that it was a combination of, well, this is my journey to talk about it, as uncomfortable as it has been. No one likes to be the weird, weird person talking about strange pregnancies and weird things that your body's doing.
It's like on this channel, everybody's the weirdest one in the room. So feel free to own it here for real. That's literally the tagline is like, we're going to get really weird. So yeah, anyway, but yeah, go on.
And I, this is the most comfortable I've ever felt talking about. So I want to thank you for that, Cool. And yeah, look, I've done a lot of research, and when I say that, I mean like research in terms of like going down rabbit holes, but also learning about other people's journeys to understand my own and the bigger perspective better. And I've met a lot of amazing women on this journey. And it's look, for the 3D mind, it's really quite confusing and confronting. And I've come a long way in my own process to own it and to embrace it and not and to try and understand it to the best of my ability. And I'll never claim to know everything, because every day I learn something new about it. But I always knew that a time would come on this planet where the frequency would be conducive for these children to be birthed physically and to thrive. And that would be almost like a changing point of determining, as a collective, moving from, one reality into the next. So, in that, I think through trial and error, trying to understand my own journey, I went down many realms of looking into different hybrid programs and things like parthenogenesis and immaculate. There's a lot of terminology, like conception, immaculate conception, to understand. For me to try to compartmentalize, this is it, but it's not. Like it's all, it all does that. But I think when you have to try and explain it to people who perhaps are still evolving their consciousness, you sometimes have to have boxes to put it in for linear minds when it's not linear at all. So I guess that's the overview. I mean, I can talk about this topic for literally days, but if you have any questions, or if there's anything that's like sparked your curiosity specifically.
I guess really the reason why I'm commenting on it is because it was a thing that, once again, you will sort of view a person and hear their voice. They'll talk about a fraction of a thing and you'll be like, yep, that's literally it. That's real. And I think in my own journey of doing this work as a professional, which is always such a weird word. What is a professional? And like, what does that even mean? I don't know, dude. I've done so many that now I'm up, it's like, who knows? But anyway, one of the things that shows up in the sessions that we do are a lot of women that will come through talking about, and I think I had this experience and I went on, I think it was a ship or it was a dream and there was children and I was hugging them and sort of playing with them. And I've even had men come in and they're like, yeah, and I keep like returning to this space and there's these, and, it's like they talk about this experience. And within the work that I've been doing, it shows up over and over and over again. And so I take it as this is something that is being asked to talk to. It's asking for it to be talked about again. It's asking to be brought out. And I just saw somebody in the chat going, I've never heard anyone talk about this stuff before. And, probably some of the people in this very chat room right now or on this broadcast are experiencing these very things. And so to me, it's like the more we can talk about it, the more we can share our experiences, the better. But yeah, is there anything else you would like to mention about that? Any kind of recent experiences or things that you have observed in other people, perhaps?
Look, I do a lot of work with women who are going through a type of pregnancy. A lot of the women that I deal with aren't overly familiar with the galactic component, whether it's part of their reality or not. They more understand it from a spiritual connection or a divine partnership connection. But then I have all ranges, but I love doing these type of sessions and this type of work because the kids that are coming through, I will say that they are raring to go. Like, if you can see, imagine for a second Earth, and then you've got like just all these children just hovering, floating, like all these amazing beings that are just ready and waiting. But I truly believe that they know when to come, and they know right now, in this very now moment, it's not the right time, because
Yeah.
they're not here for the chaos. They're here to be the rebuild, rejuvenation, and healing phase of humanity. And I think that's a big component of them, is that they're massive healers, and just their presence alone. I did an interview a couple of weeks ago, another lady who's going through very similar journey to me, who gets it from a similar level. And she was like, could you imagine when we birth these children that, they may not even have to do what we do. It might be just the eye activation that they can deprogram,
Mm-hmm.
just by looking at another human. Like, I don't think that our consciousness can yet comprehend what these children's abilities are going to be
Mm-hmm.
like. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're pretty special. And I like to do sessions because I get to play with the energy. I was talking about the different colors that come from different places. A lot of these kids outside of this galaxy, like I don't even have like human words to put on
Really.
like where they come from or anything like that. I don't even try, to be honest. But they talk to me, and they have cool things to share, and it's very joyful work. It's nice that I get to balance that sort of high vibrational, um, joyful work, and I still go into the trenches. I still
Mm.
work a lot in the dark. And I mean, I shared with you, just in
Oh
the last week.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you mind telling us a little
Sure.
bit about that? Sorry, it's like a sudden lane change. We're going. Sorry, no, and now we're over here. But yeah, no, that was a very, very interesting experience. But anyway, yeah, share with us, if you don't mind, what happened with that one.
Yeah, well, it's a bit hazy now. So much happens, but
Okay.
well, yeah, I was deep in dream space. I was on mission, as I sometimes am. Um, and I was with two people who I know in this reality, and it was a dark. The image was quite dark, and I know that's a facet of the astral realm, or where I'm working, a pocket of that. And I knew something was off, like really off. Visually, nothing looked bad, but I could feel it in my body. And I felt like my whole right arm from my shoulder down was like numb or being taken over. Um, and it was so uncomfortable that I actually was able to pull myself out of the dream space, which sometimes isn't easy to do when you're that deeply entrenched. And I
Mm.
got up and I was like, whoa, like something not good is going down. And I went into the bathroom and I heard very, very clearly, it's the Watiko. And I just felt the eeriest energy, like just through
Yeah.
me. And I was like, and in my mind, I was like, I've heard that word, but I don't know what it means. And
Mm.
so I'm sitting there, and I went to Google it, and I saw Watiko psychosis, and it creeped me out even more. And I don't have many moments where I wake up in fear like that. Like, I've done a lot of work to try and neutralize it, but I was full
Yeah.
on feeling the fear of whatever was happening, and it was bleed through,
Mm.
because I experienced it for almost 24 hours, and I kept
Mm.
hearing that it's the Watiko in my mind for like 24 hours, and it was really creepy. But as I do, I kind of wake up and I share with my soul fam, and I was like, "Whoa, this happened!" And I called my friend Dale, and so he'd had an experience like 2 days prior that someone was trying to chop off his left hand.
Damn.
Yeah, and I was like, "Whoa, what's going on here? There's something." And then I spoke to another friend, and apparently Tyler from Journey to Truth, he had a left hand experience around the same time, and I was like, "Whoa!" And then,
Oh.
and then the same night, another soul sister from Canada had the same right arm experience,
Huh.
and Yeah, and then I spoke to a friend of mine, and she said to me, Matthew talks about the Wetiko. I didn't I didn't know that. And I was like, well, there's something bigger happening here, because clearly I'm syncing to talk to you about this for a reason. And I guess that's how it just unfolded. I don't know if I have any more to share about it.
Yeah,
I did try and unpack it, and I could probably ping for, but
no,
I'd love to
really.
hear your thoughts.
Yeah. Well, okay. First off, that's fascinating, especially the sort of attachment to appendages or the way in which energy will reach out, like it's gonna grab your arm, like it's gonna grab your hand, and there's a lot of wild symbolism within the removal of limbs in the astral space and the limiting of our ability and our effectiveness or the work that we're doing, and the way certain frequencies will come in and kind of grab onto us and, try to influence their work. And I also saw it in the chat there. I think, yeah, there it is. Sasha Grace said, what is Wetika? What is it? So there's a lot of forms, I think, of what we call the Wetiko, but I believe the term was first coined by the Algonquin tribe of, I believe, somewhere in Canada, or like wherever they're based, and the word was meant to reference what they called a predatory form of sickness or madness, like a virus, this sort of psychopathic frequency that would take over people, take over their consciousness, and it works very, very heavily within groups. A lot of us have all viewed what we would call a version of the Wetiko mind virus, and sometimes it'll show up as a being, sometimes it'll show up as a parasite. To the Native Americans in the early days, they would view it as a literal rabid beast that had a hunger for blood and wanted to consume human life energy, which I believe it is literally all of those things. But a lot of us have encountered a version of what we would call the Wetiko through. I'll just say it because since like the AI is already watching, but through the sort of viral madness that is taking place on the Earth plane. And I don't necessarily mean within COVID. I'll just say the word, not necessarily within that, but within the nature of the control structures and the predatory energy that is being placed upon humanity. One of the things Wetiko seeks to do is to entrain people to a specific type of thought frequency so that you'll be following and buying into and sort of towing the line of a very particular type of, I guess, just frequency of predatory, controlling, negative, anti-life energy. And for some people, it'll be a being. Other people, it'll be like a radio frequency that will tune in. For me, I think I work a lot, or I tend to discern things as frequencies rather than, tangible beings. But it makes absolute sense that for some of us that are really tuned in, that are very active within the astral realms, and I've done sessions with people where they're like, I'm doing this dream work and these missions, and I come back with a wound, or I come back with this thing, or I come back with something with me. It makes sense that at a certain stage, it's like, kind of like you'll get a little bit of something on you, and it's like you will be aware of it, and it's not like it causes this crazy sickness, but it's like you'll acknowledge that, like, whoa, there's definitely something there, and you'll feel the after effects. And so anyway, totally real. And so
Yeah,
yeah.
well, the part I forgot to share was thank you to you, because in that moment I knew I was in fear and I needed something to distract me, to kind of calm me. I could then, finally go back to sleep. So I scroll through your YouTube channel. Great content, by the way.
Oh, thank
And,
you. It's
and
a
I
very, very well kept secret. You're one of the only people that knows that. So thank you.
I
Anyway.
was going through, and I wanted something to watch, and obviously my finger just like randomly touched on a video, like coincidentally, and it was something from like a year ago where you were doing qigong movements on the arm. So here I am, 2 a.m. in my
Oh
house,
yeah.
and I'm like,
Oh, I remember that. Yeah. Damn. I'm so glad you found that. Thanks
thank
for
you,
finding us. Yeah.
thank you.
I hope it helped in some way. I hope it
It
helped.
really did, and I went back to
Yeah.
sleep. So that was
Oh,
thanks to
cool.
you.
Huh, very interesting. Well, have there been any other strange or angular or difficult experiences that you've come out with after going on these astral journeys or within the dream space? Anything that just comes up in your mind?
Recently, I got out of the shower and I looked down and I have all these massive bruises on my body. I get that from time to time. That's not uncommon.
Yeah,
And you look at it and you go, I would have remembered if I'd hit myself that hard, like seriously, you know,
yeah,
and very specific places. I mean, that's just recent, but in my 20s, I I probably went to the school of the hard knocks in terms of like entities and dark energies, and I learned the hard way. And I often reflect about my 20s as an entire decade of psychic attack and trying to learn and master.
Yes. Yeah.
And I remember because that was kind of as my skills were really kind of blossoming. And I think that's a thing that as you start to evolve, you kind of have that counterbalance, or that sort of as your light shines, then you start to have those experiences that try and keep you in a resistance place. That so it's your own initiation to overcome those and learn from those experiences. But I do remember like I was having an argument with a certain being at the time, because I was doing a lot of I don't do it now, but I was doing a lot of like crossing spirits over, like lost, and I guess I just attract a lot, but they wanted me to do a very specific thing that I didn't want to do. And it wasn't horrible. It was like to write a letter to someone, and I was very I was like, no, 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 I'm not going to do it. And they said, if you don't do it, like, you know, there'll be consequences. And I was like, yeah, whatever. Like, I'm a bit stubborn like that. Like, whatever. I'm not going to do it. And yeah, there was like 3 things. I can't remember the first thing. And the second thing, I woke up and I had a black eye, like someone had punched me in the face. And even then I was like, yeah, is that all you got? Like, I'm still not doing it. And then the next day I woke up and my car had rolled itself down the driveway and smashed into the fence.
Oh.
And at that point I was like, not my car. Okay, I'll do it.
Oh.
Yeah. So
did you end up writing the letter?
I did actually. And you know what? Like, it wasn't a pleasant outcome in that moment, but it was necessary because I needed to disconnect from that connection. And that letter was the catalyst that made the separation occur. So it was in my highest good. I was just being a stubborn human.
Yeah. Oh, wild. Wild. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Here comes, get ready. We're going to do another random lane change question moment. What do you think about the phenomenon of implantation as a spiritual practitioner? One of the big things that I feel like it was a much bigger deal a couple of years ago, but constantly people actually, it still happens every week. People come in like, I have this implant, I have this thing, I have this energy in my body. And, you know, for me, in most cases, you know, what I've observed is one person's implant is another person's childhood trauma or another blocked energy in the body. But as a practitioner in this strange realm, do you encounter implantation? Have you experienced it? What sort of just understandings and sort of experiences have you had around the concept of implantation?
Yeah. I used to, in the beginning of my sessions, do full body scans where I'd look for implants. Now that you mention it, I don't really do that anymore. Look, yeah, they do exist. I see them as there's different types. So if there is one, and that, you know, I think you're right. I think we can interpret things as certain, like energy is energy, right? It's how we perceive it and interpret it. People do get implants. Like I know people who physically have one behind the ear and you can feel it. I actually have one in my I have one in my foot. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have done since I was about 17, which has caused not great physical, you know, it has caused a lot of physical issues, but that's a separate.
I feel you.
So there is the physical implants, and then there is also what I call a frequency chip. So it's an energetic, yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Totally.
But they're not all malevolent either. Like the one in my foot,
Agree.
I know serves a great purpose. It's like my it's like my tracking device.
Yeah.
So,
For real.
yeah.
No, I actually have one literally right here on the side of my ear that I tried to remove at other stages of my life. I literally tried to cut it out at another stage years ago, and I did not know that it was an implant at the time, but it's a mass that would never leave my body. It's still there to this day. I had actually, in the early stages of my awakening journey, I would reach out to people about it and be like, "Is this what is it? What's happening?" And I mean, literally, it is still there to this very day. I've had people try to reach out after I don't talk about it on live streams very much. In fact, I don't think I've ever talked about it on this channel until right now. So some of the people out there are like, "What? Now Matthew claims he has an implant." Literally, you can put your finger on it and touch it. It's a literal thing on the side of my head. And but I have also observed that it is not a negative thing. In fact, I went to great pains when I became more aware of it to try to, sort of deactivate the frequency around it, which is a thing I think we can do. We can sort of deaden the frequencies of the transmissions that come from the body. But I think for those of us that have that and are aware of it, I think it's something that it does not happen by mistake. It's a thing
No.
that, whether it be, whether it be an aspect of our training or just part of our journey as humans, it's a literal, real thing. And so it's cool to hear you talk about how you have something very, very similar.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny now because like I guess for a long time I had the belief system that I had a physical issue in my foot, which on a 3D surface level, it does look like it's constantly swollen, like it's larger than the other one. It was really unpleasant growing up as a teenager and wanting to like, dress up nice, and everyone's like, "Oh, what's wrong with your foot?" And it used to bring up a lot of emotion around, and when there's no emotion that you've healed from something, right?
Totally. It's like, yeah,
And
that's there anyway, yeah.
And now I just don't care anymore, to the point where now when people ask me, I don't even go into that story. If they
Mhm.
ask me, I'll go, "Oh yeah, I have an implant in my foot from my galactic friends," and people's reaction, I just love getting.
Totally right. Some of us will get weird. Other people get, whoa. Other people get kind of creeped out by it. I had a lady on, I talked about it on one interview once, and somebody emailed me afterward and was like, I am the one that can take it out. I can finally do it for you. And it was one of those things where I was like, I don't think it really needs to be taken out. And I think her comment was like, well, I thought that you would be a lot more, what was the phrase? I thought you would be more grateful to hear that it's possible. And I was like, what? Okay. She's like, anyway, thank you. Goodbye. But yeah, no, I think the more we take ownership over the bizarreness and the intricacies and the weird little kind of quirks of our human journey, I think the more we embody the realest version of ourself. And so whether it's a weird implant in your ear that does God knows what, or a thing in your foot that creates a strange, swelling, or I noticed somebody in the chat was like, my daughter and I have it in their forehead. Like, whichever way it shows up, I think that, at least in my experience, implantation is a fact. It's part of our journey as humans. But I think, at least what I've viewed as a practitioner, is that the majority of the sort of implantation clients or cases that I get, 9 out of 10 of them are nothing of the sort. And it's a literal piece of blocked energy within the body. And
Yeah.
yeah, very, very, very interesting. So it is good to hear you mention that.
I did,
Um,
I don't
yeah,
know why this is coming up, so I'm just gonna go there.
yeah,
I
go
did
for it.
I had a client a few years ago that I saw what I think it was originally when I coined the term frequency chip. And they were malevolent, and they were placed on like where the chakra system would be in very specific points.
Yep.
And this client had a long history of having schizophrenia and various different mental health conditions, including Tourette's as well. And I worked quite solidly with her, and I was able to remove them. And her mental health, like psychosis and all that, kind of died down afterwards. And I learned a lot from that, because I was like, damn, that's a massive inversion, or like some sort of a manipulation of her energy centers, which is then creating all these issues.
Yeah.
So I find I used to work in mental health, like in my
Yeah,
3D.
me too. Me too. Wait, so
So
what was your role or occupation within the mental health realm?
I worked as a trainer and facilitator. So it was a program to help integrate people who'd been on disability in back into the workforce. So I would train there for like 36 weeks on like job. You know, I used to be a recruiter, so like how to write a resume, but I integrated all like meditation and healing in it, and it was really cool. I
Whoa.
did enjoy that job. Yeah, it
Why
very
is
challenging, but I
yeah.
learned a lot.
Why is that an aspect of so many of our journeys? Prior to doing what I'm doing now, I also worked in a very similar way, except what we were doing was getting homeless veterans into housing, and it was like this. It was like a 2-year housing program, and very similar, working with all of the same things that you're talking about, all of the same stuff. It was more from like a rehab, like
Yeah,
perspective, people that had been, various like rehabs and whatnot. But that's interesting to note that was a part of your journey, because I think that's where a lot of us pick up the pieces or the techniques that we use now in a totally different way. And what I've also noticed, I think I was talking about this with somebody in a session just earlier this morning, that um, for those that have that experience and work in the mental health realm, it gives you a completely different view of how to access people's energy. Some people call it the bedside manner, or the manner in which you learn to connect with people socially. It like gives you a whole other spectrum of like tools and like methods to like connect with people. And so,
I couldn't
interesting
agree
sign.
more. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
when did you transition out of that? Did you sort of like leave that behind into what you're doing now, or how did that go for you?
Yeah, good story actually. I did it for many years, and I did similar thing, like various different jobs similar to that. But I was starting to make a transition into kind of doing more spiritual entrepreneurship, and I was trying to do both. And I was doing like long days, late nights, and I was around the time of my Kundalini awakening, and I literally had a moment outside to the universe, and I was like, I don't know how long I can keep doing this, like, you
Yeah.
know. And then within less than 24 hours, I got a phone call in the afternoon, and it was an ex colleague of mine saying, "My condolences. I'm so sorry." And I was like, "What?" And she said, "But the good news is we've got a job waiting for you." I was like, "What? What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
And the company went bust. So literally within 24 hours, I lost my job.
Wow.
She goes, "What? How did you not know? It was all over the news." I don't watch the news. Like, so
Wow.
yeah, that was my transition.
So
Mm.
the timeline got canceled for you. Is that when you sort of stepped into doing this work full time?
Yeah, I would say yes. And then the pregnancy thing
Mm.
happened. And then I went into like a dark night for about 9, 10 months. So I didn't do any work. Well, I did a lot of personal work. I didn't work with people during that time. And then it was maybe about 12 months later that I started to get back into it. Yeah. And, it was a saving grace for me because I truly believe that when you're doing what you're meant to do at the right time, of course, it pulled me out of my funk. Like it pulled me because I was dedicating my focus back into being of service and doing what I love. Yeah. So I'm a big advocate for like do what you're meant to do because it's gonna make you feel good. It's gonna help people.
Absolutely.
Just you know.
I couldn't
So
agree more. It's like we're sort of healing ourselves through healing other people. And I guess if you want to get technical, let's get weird. We're not actually healing anyone. Let's get real. We're creating the opportunity for healing, or opening the door for people to have their own experience. But I had a very, 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 very similar timeline. And I guess here comes another angular question. Around what sort of year was your dark night of the soul, and the point when you realized I have to, I guess I'm doing this? Around what year was that for you?
2016.
Boom. There we go. 2000. Yeah, for me, it was 2016, 2017. I finally broke from everything, walked away from my whole life, like the relationship, marriage, home, career, everything. Just like, which sounds very, it sounds like a mic drop now, but at the time it was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. I don't know what's gonna happen on the other side of it, but it's like I think that that's the case for a lot of people. And maybe you can comment on this, because a lot of what I've been doing along with my wife and Nora over the past years is kind of training people and getting people up to speed in terms of what we're doing and stepping into that next stage of the mission. And what I've observed about a lot of people is that we'll go through these stages of crazy darkness. We'll have pivotal experiences in the beginning. We'll learn, maybe I could, maybe, and then all this shit happens, right? And then it's like you have to go through this crazy healing journey, which, you know, if you want to get technical in the world of tarot, that's called the temperance stage, where we learn we heal others through healing ourselves. But then you will come out on the other side of it. And what I've been observing with a lot of people that I've been working with is that you'll come to this stage where if you're meant to do this thing that we're doing now, you will find that you can't really do anything else anymore. Did you have any experiences similar to that? How did that go for you?
Oh yeah, yeah. I actually wanted to do a fashion shoe business, and I had all these wild, amazing ideas, and invested all my money and the bank's money, I should say, and it was my money, and I lost big time. Like the financial fall for me was horrendous, and nothing would work. Absolutely nothing in my life would work until I started doing this work. And then the doors started to open up. But as soon as I'd start even to this day, if I slightly start to go off path and like, oh, I might just, over here, nothing works and I get slapped back. I don't,
My Lord, yes.
So I talk about like the Ascension corridor, right? That gets narrower and narrower and all these doors close. And I joke about like, where, people have different take on this, but I put it in humor. I'm like, my free will in regards to, my experience is what type of milk am I going to have in my coffee? Because I don't believe that I have the range, only because I'm kept on a very narrow path in what I'm meant to be doing.
Yeah.
So whereas maybe 10 years ago, I could have gone off it and like exercised my quote unquote free will to like
Totally.
go wild or whatever. But I don't have, because the mission and the work is so important and I'm so dedicated to it, not just for myself, but for everyone, for humanity. Like we're in this corridor right now that we got to get stuff done. And, and we have to be the best version of ourselves. So, yeah.
I've observed a very, very similar thing. Like when you're meant to do this, it's usually the only thing you can do. And I think for a lot of us, it's like not even a thing that we do, it's a thing that you are. And that was kind of one of the weird blockages we had with a few people like in our training program, is that a lot of people are like, well, I'm going to sign up for the job of being an energy healer. I'm going to take some courses and I think I'm going to try this thing. And for some people, that is very much how it works. But for other people, and I think probably a lot of people that are watching this weird little show right now, is that it's a thing that you become. It's not a thing that you sign up for. And for some of us, we come into it through trauma and hardship and the school of hard knocks, or whatever you want to call it, and banging your head on all these timelines, whether it's shoes. For me, it was a band. Like one of my previous versions of me in this life was as a musician. And, it was all I did for many years. Literally all I did, toured all over the place, never really had success. But it was like a thing that I did. And so it's like we will embody a different version of ourselves at this stage of the journey. And you'll know when you got to the one that you're meant to be in, because it's like the world will open. Like you were saying, these weird doors open. And I think for a lot of us, while it's the only thing we can do, it's like a stage of true embodiment that I think we're sort of meant to express and like reflect back out to the world. Because I think you can agree, part of our journey, I think, as whether you want to call it healers or intuitives or just energetic beings, is that we are meant to find the others. Yeah. That's the way, I mean, who knows, but yeah, at least that's how I see it.
I totally agree. And I think, there is a time where we feel abandoned and lost and like crying in a fetal position well, I can speak for myself here.
Oh no, totally. I've like literally been in the shower, rolled up in a little ball at like 3 a.m. so many more times than I would ever want to admit. Just like, what's wrong with me? Why? Totally. So I feel you.
But that part is necessary. it is so necessary to unravel so much of our own like shedding and layers and false versions of self. And there's so much that goes into it that and we have to do that alone, unfortunately, because if we had our soul fam there while we're going, we wouldn't do like it's not going to work. Our soul fam, when they come in, hold us in such a beautiful space, and the recognition and the activations and all that beauty that comes in with connecting with you today. I'm like, oh my God, bro, like, where you been? Like, there's so much beauty to that. And I think we're stepping into those times at the moment on a much larger scale, which is, that the world's about to change drastically when you see people of that resonance finding each other and syncing up and joining forces in whatever way that looks. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, thank you Get ready for an awkward lane change once again. Here we go. Can you talk a little bit about what you see coming with respect to world events? I know that's such a loaded thing, but right now, as everyone knows, we're in the are we in World War III? Are we in a war? Are we in a next stage of viral madness? And I know you guys in Australia are getting like the worst of it, or at least from the American point of view, we're watching it going, what the fuck? What's really going on? And so from your perspective on the other side of the world, can you talk a little bit about where do you see things going? And I know that's so general, it opens the door for everything, but what have you been viewing and maybe with the clients you're working with in your own timeline? Where do you see us going in the coming months? Crazier, calmer, better? What do you think?
Oh, it's so hard my disclaimer, timelines can change.
Totally. But yeah, no, it's all good. Everything, it could shift tomorrow. But anyway.
But my feeling that comes from a core inner place is I don't think we've seen the end of the crazy, because we need to. The movie has to completely play out to the end. And I don't think we've got quite there yet. So I think that there's still going to be a little bit of upheaval. Nothing will get to catastrophic levels, but it will perhaps appear like that in some people's reality for the benefit of their awakening process. And I think the splitting of the reality is so prominent too, because I know when people talk about the potential war and that, I'm like, what? What? I'm in such a different reality right now. I can't. But I do think that we're going to see something that's going to kind of shake the world. And I don't know what it is. I can feel something's coming. I think it may have to do around, at least I hope, has to do with some sort of disclosure around darkness that's been happened on the planet, for people to go to the depth of where they need to start the healing process as a collective, potentially around children. I don't know, but I think we're still going to have a couple of those things. And then I think with the anger that will come and the rage that will come through the uncovering of some of that shadow collectively will probably tip off the sun, to be honest. So I see a counterbalance of dark then light, neutralizing it and trying to balance as a planetary body. But I do think we're in for some good times as well. So I think, and at any moment you can tune into either reality. But yeah, I think we haven't seen the last of the show unraveling, and I think it needs to. It's purposeful, and the best thing that people can do is stay in their own center and heart and do from moment to moment, do their own, whether it's healing or alignment or connection or whatever, to be stable. And if you're in a position to help others navigate through that process, to do that.
Totally.
We've been training for this for a long time. So we're here. I think we're here now.
All the way back to the Egyptian / Atlantean eras. I think that a lot of us sort of went through processes or trainings, or, and I know it feels like a long time ago that we mentioned it, but I do also agree that a lot of us popped in a non-physical way during those eras. And I've actually in my own journey kind of charted, or what I believe experienced, a fragment of where that came in. And I think a lot of it was through work that we did within pyramid structures, which at the time had a number of purposes. And one of those was as a multidimensional portal transmission device in which we would actually come and go through those structures, which, in the early days, they're like, it's a sarcophagus. No, actually, it was a portal device through which we would heal our bodies and travel to other realms. And what I think is that a lot of us who are doing this work in this specific lifetime, it's the direct result of the choices and the decisions and the work that we were doing in what we would call those Egyptian eras, or the so-called Atlantean timelines, which looks like it was right before, well, not really before, but it was preceding the sort of Egyptian kind of timelines that we experienced. And so I think it was making us ready for what we are doing now, at least as far as I can tell.
I couldn't agree more. I
Yeah.
couldn't agree more.
Totally.
Yeah, well said. Really well said.
So just real quickly, for anyone out there in the chat, we can take a couple questions. If you guys have any questions, feel free to throw them in there. I promise this time I will try to get to the questions. A lot of times I'll sort of glaze through it. So let us know if you have any specific questions. But yeah, anyway, let's see. Where was the other thing I was going to ask you? Here we go. It'll help me in the future to write stuff down. But oh yeah, okay. So one of the big focuses of the work that I've been doing, and what I've observing other people who are kind of operating, and I guess we could lovingly call it a professional manner as an energy worker or a practitioner, is that a lot of us, while we're still doing the individual work, we're starting to teach or train or get other people up to speed. And so one of the questions I wanted to ask you kind of revolves around a question that I get constantly from people. And that is, how can I better be in contact or listen or hear the energy of my guides? Because as you know, we've all, some of us believe we've got millions. Other people believe we only have 3. Some people are like, they're all you. But whatever your understanding of that is, how, in your experience, can people who are just coming into their abilities stay in conscious contact with those spiritual energies?
Very interesting question. I get that a lot too, and I sometimes I don't know how to answer it. Yeah. I think for me, the concept of guides for me is kind of irrelevant. Like when people say, "Who do you work with?" I'm like, myself. And myself. But that wasn't always the case, so I have to kind of take myself back, Mm-hmm. But I would say the best thing that people can do is, I always say, like, get into the heart. Like, if you can quiet the mind and like tap into like breathing. Okay, this is what's coming through, so we'll go with it.
Yeah, please go for it.
If you can like sort of notice where your energy is at and kind of consciously bring it into a space within your heart where you can get that really quiet silence, where the chatter, that mental chatter, is kind of pushed out. So I would guide people to clear their field first to make sure there's nothing in there. Get into that space, and almost it's like moving through a portal of silence to then stillness, sorry. And as you kind of move into that, then you can hear, but it's hearing through a feeling or a knowing. And the guidance of connecting, let's say, with your higher self, let's say, or a guide, is very subtle. It's not a like rah, rah, rah in your face. I mean, it can be, but generally it's more the subtle that is the guidance that you should be paying attention to. The rest chatter is probably maybe not, the most conducive to pay attention to, at least in my own experiences. That deep knowing from within, or that guidance that we should be paying attention to, is soft and is subtle, and it doesn't try to fight for acknowledgement. It just is, because it's truth, and it's the own individual truth. Yeah.
Nice. I like the way you said that. Yeah. I actually very, very much agree. And I guess I will kind of add a weird thing to it, because It's been a very common question as well. And what I have observed, and maybe this is me, because a lot of other people have talked about, well, how do I get in contact with, my higher self, as if it's a separate version, like, hey, I'm calling the higher, hey self, how's it going? No, for me, it has been a very different process. And what I discerned very early on, or actually, I'll be honest, what was shown and told to me by a very talented person at the time, which I instantly knew was true. So sometimes I like to, differentiate from where information comes from. I don't know why I like to do that, but what I was shown and what I experienced was that, at least for me, I like to, try to keep it individual, but at least for me, the higher self is actually a collection of many versions of me that have existed throughout time and space, who actually lend their consciousness to this physical container and this version of Matthew. And so for me, the concept, or the process rather, of connecting with my guides has been not only connecting with the higher self, but the many versions of me that exist throughout time and space. And so what I like to tell people, maybe you can kind of comment on this, is that what I like to tell people is that, or rather what I have observed, is that many of the thought forms and the conversations that take place internally for us, and I don't mean all of them, but many of the internalized conversations that come at certain time periods or certain junction points that we identify as us in an internal dialogue with ourselves, is actually us speaking with the multitude of energies and guides and versions of us. What do you think about that?
I would agree with that 100%. Yeah, totally. And I love the way that you explain that, because I refer to, at one point it was my higher self, and then it was like, oh, that aspect of me, that aspect of me, that aspect of me. And so I do interface with the different aspects of me when I need to. But yes, that dialogue, and it can be, yeah, I call it energetic bleed through. That's the term that, yeah, because I can be aware of something happening. Like, I can be washing the dishes and I can be aware of a dialogue that's taking place from a version of myself from 3 years ago that's having a dialogue with someone else. Like, it's so trippy and so vast. And then from there, it'll instantly line up to Egypt because it will correlate. And that's where it gets all a bit convoluted, because it's like, I'm jumping in and around. But yes, there is that. I've never thought about it like that before, but yeah, you've just like opened up a whole thing for me right now.
Thanks. I feel it. And don't worry about getting caught on a strange angular tangent. That's literally all I do. So it's like, if you're like, am I even making sense? It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It's totally cool. People kind of pick up what they can pick up. But I guess that sort of leads me into another question. And hopefully we're not keeping you too long. You can give me a really obvious signal if you
No.
we won't go that much longer. But one of the things that I've really enjoyed about your work, and I'll just say it, there's really only two people who I turn to for looking at those things. You and Alexis are kind of the ones that are talking about, like the energetic movements, and I guess we could call it space weather, and the ways we're being affected by it. But I'm just curious, what is your process for kind of tuning into that stuff? Because I've noticed, like, the post that you put out about it, it's like you will sort of write about some energy that's happening, and I'm like, holy shit, yeah, literally all of those things, and it's been happening. And so you have a really, really unique ability to take the energetic temperature of our environment. How did you like get into that? What's your process around measuring it? How does it go for you?
Thank you. Probably since 2014, I realized that there was something happening to my body and my circumstances that was outside of my control, or it was an external factor that I started to follow space weather. And it's literally been my own personal observation of myself for that period of time. And then when I started blogging about it, well, obviously Alexis is amazing and has been such an influential part of that with and I always like turn people to Alexis because I don't understand the graphs and like to the detail that Alexis does. That's not like, that's her domain. She's really good at that. For me, it's purely energetic, intuitive, and observational. And I think just over the years, I have just kind of worked out this formula that I understand that when there is a solar flare, this is what happens, generally speaking. When there's solar wind, this is what happens, because I feel it all in my body. And just to clarify, I don't always, all the time. It depends on the frequency that I'm in. But I noticed that that was the process for me in the journey of me of becoming more and more attuned to my sensitivity and energy. And I think, yeah, the way that I take the temperature, as you put it, is through my own body and through my own experience. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So, and then I think just over the years of being able to blog it, to try and help people make sense of that, it's okay. Like, don't wig out too much. You're going to be all right in a day or so. Like, these are the implications of what we're experiencing. You just kind of, you get better understanding of it. So I think there's some people who have quite a deep connection to the earth herself, Gaia herself, and that I would include myself in that. And I think as she goes through her shifts, like, I feel it deeply, and I think a lot of us do. Yeah. So
Thank you. That's a very good way to put it. So it sounds like you're sort of, I guess we could say, taking the energetic temperature of our environment through observing the states and the changes and the feelings and the way you're reacting to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's a combination. Like, I know what initially it was about my own experience, and then it was like I started to observe other people, and I was like, oh, there's patterns here. I like to observe patterns. That's how I kind of read things. I look at, there's a pattern there, and then that happened 2 years ago on this date, so therefore blah blah. Like, that's just that's how I work.
Wow. That's a really good example of, I think, how people will have certain frequencies or wavelengths that they're naturally suited to work within. Whereas, like, some people will be looking at, the sort of, as I say, the temperature of our energetic environment. Whereas I am not necessarily, and I will pick up that information from, like, people like you guys, where I'm like, oh, really? That's what's going. Okay, damn, all right. Whereas I think, I am much more body systems like related. I'm very much within the meridians, very much within the chakras, and it's like, for me, I'll just hear a fragment of a person's voice, and I'm like, okay, throat chakra, triple armor meridian, liver meridian. It's like a thing where it's like I'll be able to identify it because I will feel the structure within myself. And so I think to me, the way you're kind of describing, the way you will kind of notice those energies, and the way I'll kind of describe of like how I'll kind of tune in with like people's energy, to me, that's an example of when you are truly embodied within yourself. Because you'll be able to view like, okay, here's this energy, here's this sensation, here's this thing that's taking place. And you'll be able to tell, wait, is it just me going through this, or am I viewing something that's happening on a collective level? And I think, anyway, that to me, that's a sign of very, very deep, I have such a weird stutter, embodiment. There we go. So yeah, good job with that. Yeah.
Thank you. But I'm fascinated. You know, I'm going to have to get you on my show, because I have all these questions for you now. But what you just described about like being able to hear a person's like voice and pick up, that's something I can't do. So I'm like, oh, you're going to have to tell me everything. I want to
Oh,
know.
totally. I would love to. We can even do like an exchange at some point, because there's a thing that I've noticed, and this is for everyone else out there that's hearing this that also does energy work. One of the ways you learn, one of the ways we get better, one of the ways we embody what we're doing is by sharing and like doing this thing with other people and go, okay, you do this and I do that, and we're going to do this thing. And yes, at some point in our journey, yeah, it becomes a thing that you do and people will pay you for it. And that, that's a whole other side of it. But for those of us that are kind of learning and figuring this out, the way you do it for many of us is by sharing it with other people and sort of picking it up. Everybody has a weird little key. Everyone has their own version of a thing that we're sort of, unlocking within everyone else. And so, anyway.
Have you also noticed, like, when I've certainly noticed this when I work with other amazing, because I work with amazing people. Like, I'm very blessed with the people around me and that I work with. And I'm sure you're the same, but when I start to like do a swap with them or share with them, I start to merge or morph and take on some of their abilities and vice versa. It's
Totally.
like
Yep.
yeah, I love it.
That's
I love it.
literally that's honestly kind of how I started doing. It sounds so dumb to talk about. That's how I kind of started doing energy work. Was I started hanging out with people like Eric Rains, who was a really big part of my journey in the beginning, and it was like we just went to. It sounds so dumb. It went to like a just like a retreat, and it was like this weird switch flicked on, and it was like we share these energies with people there, and I was like, suddenly now I'm doing this or X, Y, and Z. Now I'm going there, and it's a process of entrainment and sort of activation that comes in between, like relationships and connecting with people's energy. And a lot of people that watch this channel know this ad nauseum now, but I started doing tarot not through learning, but because I had an experience with a person who literally turned on a switch in my body and was like, oh, suddenly I know how to do this thing. And it sounds very disingenuous to be like, suddenly I just started doing this, but that's literally how it works for some of us. A little bit like in the Matrix, where he's like, suddenly I know, like karate or whatever. That is a real thing, and you can be entrained and something can be activated. And so anyway, the more we share those things, the more they happen for other people. But
Yeah, that's awesome.
cool. Oh, and you know what? We do have a question here, if it's all right. Thank you. This is from Jeremy Burr. How's it going? Question. I have felt a bodhisattva energy where I have been tied to the collective unfoldment of consciousness, where I am held back in a way. How can someone let go and activate completely for me? It sounds like he's in a stage of noticing his own blockages, his own abilities, and then also kind of getting stuck within that process of development. And can you comment a little bit on that? Anything you'd like to say to his question?
I think just to follow on from what you said, it's like once the awareness is there, then you can start to progress through any sort of blockages. Like go and activate completely. I think it always starts with the intention first. So if you hold the intention to be able to be, free or liberated to activate completely, then going back into that process of paying, like going into hearing your own guidance, you'll then be led to whether it's the person, the practitioner, the location, the situation that will help support you in that. I think that's all that sort of comes to mind for me.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And sometimes I'll drop a weird, awkward question. It's like, whoa, where did we go with that? But no, thank you, Jeremy. That's very authentic. And I would add one thing to that. The way that I think for me, a lot of those things were activated, or I would sort of view a certain version of myself and feel the gap in between this version of me and that one. And it's like, how do I get there? But for me, and maybe this is not everyone, but it was through healing and working with and connecting with the inner child. It's like the more I have acknowledged that, the more I have embraced this weird little bizarre inner child within me, the more I have noticed that it's like things will unlock and you'll start moving through states of being and experiences will just open up in your life. And so I would say work with the inner child, embrace that and heal that. What do you think about that?
Very important. Very important. Our inner children need to play, and sometimes I can see that in a session where I can see the inner child is trapped within the person. So like as a metaphoric image, there's like the person's energy and to unlock, and I will, so maybe this helps Jeremy too. I can see how if you unlock that energetically and then sort of like merge the two together, there is like a transformation that takes place in the merging of those aspects. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel you. Here comes another question. Get ready. Here we go. How do you cut cords with others? Do you have a system for doing that? I have a weird feeling, people will come to you and go, I need to cut cords with this person, or I need this out of my life. How is that process for you? What do you think?
No. I've changed as everything, it evolves. So I kind of work more with I used to do a lot of cord cutting, but no. I look at, obviously looking at the dynamic between the person and like what's the issue here, how can we heal and resolve it, but working specifically with the energetic cords or tethers is I use more of a purification, so it's purifying the connection as it was in like the negative sense, quote unquote, and working around healing that, and then running. So when the awareness has come through the person of what healing is being resolved through that connection, then purifying the energetic cord and then back to that person so that they can basically resolve or neutralize whatever issue has taken place. Yeah.
That's a good way to put it. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like it's less about cutting the cord and more about healing the connection or the source energy within the individual, almost like dealing with the root rather than the branch. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's kind of, yeah. Here, go ahead.
And like on a physical level, it still may have the same implications that you go separate ways with that person. It's not necessarily about healing a relationship. It's about healing that timeline or those timelines that have played out that is, impacting both in a negative way. So it's about working with the energy to try and resolve it. So that when you resolve it energetically, then physically it can come into a resolution as well, potentially.
That's a very good way to put it. I have observed within the phenomenon of what we would call cords or kind of energies that are shared between ourselves and others is that we're constantly connecting. We're constantly sending out those strands. As soon as you think you cut cords with someone, you'll be thinking about them the next day. I cut cords with so and so, and it's like, boom, you're back. You're
You're back.
pumping again. And even within our loved ones, within people that we have no desire to separate from, because cord cutting is not even about, at least as far as I'm concerned, it's not about getting people out of your life. It's about cleaning the energetic connections that we would have, between ourselves and others. And so I like that you're talking about, healing the source energy rather than, okay, that's it. I'm just going to sever this line. And, because I don't know if that's really
You come from a very wounded place, kind of. I'm just going to cut the cord, done. But I have a funny story about cord cutting.
Yeah.
The very first time that I came into that concept with one of my original teachers, he used me as like a guinea pig, so to speak, in a class where he was demonstrating how to cut cords with a laser crystal. And I came out of that classroom that night, and I had 72 missed calls and 35 text messages.
Damn. Okay. That's a hell of a clearing. That's a hell of a cord cutting. Was it all from the same person?
Well, there was one person in particular that did a majority, but there was a variety of different people. And I think it just demonstrates that when you cut cords, the other person feels it.
Totally.
And they go into panic because they feel like with the cord, you're sharing an aspect of you and vice versa, right? And sometimes it's an uncomfortable part of a person that you're sharing. So when you go to cut that cord, they have to deal with that aspect of themselves. Mm-hmm. And that's why people can go into like a frenzy and a panic when you go to cut cords. And it doesn't always have a positive.
Totally.
Yeah.
I very, very much agree. I used to say this to people like at the end of sessions. I don't know why I don't anymore, but I would be like, after we clear certain types of energy, you might find in the coming days, people from your past, people from old timelines will suddenly contact you. And yeah, no, that is a real thing. That's a real thing. Liz in the chat's like, people I hadn't spoken to in years. That happened to me in 2015. People will feel it. And here's the thing, we instantly reconnect. We will instantly reconnect, but yeah.
And if you're conscious about the reconnection, then you reconnect in a higher frequency, in a higher connection with that person.
Totally. Yeah. Thank you for saying that. We have another question. I haven't even read it all the way. We're just going to throw it up there. But do you believe that you attract people that are meant to pull out the root that's been implanted throughout your life? Angular. That's an angular question. I think I pick up where you're coming from, LSD. But what do you think? Any comments on that?
Look, in a general sense, I'm one of those. I see the purpose in everything. I think that everything is meant to be to some degree or level. So, yeah, I do believe that we attract people into our life so that we can excavate the root traumas.
Yeah.
Not always fun.
Yeah, if there's one thing I've noticed about this strange realm, and who knows, maybe I'm wrong, but I think we're at the stage in the Earth game where literally nothing happens by mistake. And if there's a problematic cycle of like a relationship, it's literally there so that you'll either balance it or heal it, or and at times the healing is the cutting off. So sometimes we do, and it's like boom, now we're really done. And oddly enough, I've had that with a few people in the past year. Honestly, really, it has been a thing where I'm like, wow, I'm literally done with those people and that scene. And that's a thing that will kind of happen. But yeah, anyway, thank you for your questions, everybody. We're just going to keep you a little bit longer. I have a little bit of another question, and I was wondering, can you take us through a little bit of the energy work that you do? Can you kind of describe the sessions, or what can people expect from like a healing session or the many kind of spiritual services that you offer?
Yeah, sure. Generally, like everything that I do is pretty much remote, and I do that for various reasons. And I actually prefer it. I actually feel like I
Me
am a
too.
clearer channel.
Absolutely agree. Totally agree.
So I like to. I'm a bit of a chatter. I like to chat and I like to listen and I like to hear people's stories. But I think you pick up so much. So the first part of my session, I do like to listen and ask questions. You work the same, don't you?
Go
Yeah.
on, go on, go on. I'm with you. Yeah, yeah.
And then when we go into the energy work, I get people to get comfortable, whether it's lying down. And then I basically open up their field and I step in with permission, of course. And depending on the session, like I'll spend a bit of time observing and I'll just kind of speak information that, so I do record them because it's like I do have quite fine-tuned intuitive psychic abilities. So, like I will kind of remote view whatever's being shown or presented, which could be guidance. It could be more about what their body, but it's like I'm reading their current energy, um, and whatever wants to kind of come through from. And I always say this is my interpretation. I could be off, but I'm just going to share like how it comes through to me. I'm not going to censor it. And from that, then I look at making the adjustments and the changes that is required to help support that person in what they need in that moment. So um, it's look, it can go from like sometimes I work very deeply with the chakra system. That's kind of the foundation of the work that I do. A lot of it is like clearing. I work with clear replace. So if you're going to clear something, make sure you replace it with something better. Otherwise, something not nice might creep in.
Totally. Oh Lord.
But I think the overall intention is I want to help bring people into their own greatness. I want to support people to step into their own self mastery, and I want to support people to really hold the highest frequency so that they can do and share and be who they're meant to be in the greater scheme of things. So I tend to focus on things like, well, obviously pregnancies and children, but divine connections and counterparts, and also soul mission and purpose and galactic origins, and some secret space stuff as well. So it's kind of, yeah, I like to have my figure in.
Yeah, I think you and I are very similar in that way, in that it sounds very much like the structure of like what I do. And I almost give people a little cheesy spiel in the beginning. I'm like, okay, step one, we open the door and just see what shows up. I'll ask you a bunch of awkward questions. I'll interrupt you constantly, and we'll talk about your experiences. Step two, we do a bit of a reading, look at your timeline, thumb through a few things in your multidimensional field. And then part three, literally, like you just said, it's kind of like a meditation that we do together where we sort of take a trip through just the internal workings of your body. And it's like very much, it sounds like very much like what you do, but I call those sort of sessions a mixture between sort of like it's like a mix of psychic therapy, a shamanic clearing, and an alien doctor all in one. And it's like
Yes.
some people cringe
Oh,
when you hear that, but like the more I take ownership over it, the more it gets better. And so it sounds like
that is the most accurate description I've ever heard. Yeah, I had a feeling. I just knew that we work very similar. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that's
Which, what a
cool.
pleasure to kind of be in your presence and have
Yeah,
this
thank
chat.
you. Thanks for being willing to come through into this strange timeline with everybody over here. What are you? What are your favorite types of kind of client experiences as a professional energy worker? Because I know some people don't like to talk about it, so it's okay. But some of the experiences were like, whoa, okay, we're dealing with that again. And sometimes you're like, whoa, I love those versions of blank. Is there type of people or situations that you really enjoy like working with?
Yeah. Look, I would say a very high 98%. I walk away from a session and my mind is blown, and I'm like, oh my God, I just love that person. Like, I really do. I love the work that I do, and the people that I come just amazing. And I feel like I deal with like very, I may be a little biased, but I feel like I deal with a lot of like high caliber, or I have the ability to see people's highest expressions.
Yeah.
And I'm almost in awe and taken back by their beauty, their greatness, their potential, and to help facilitate. But look, I do wig out on the galactic stuff. That does get me going a lot. Like I do like that. I feel very comfortable when I'm in the space realms, deep space. But I also like the earth stuff. I don't know. I think I like learning, and every session I learn something new. And yeah, maybe the children. Maybe that's my favorite
Yeah.
when I able to contact with people, the energy of people's children who haven't been born yet or have been born. Same, same.
Yeah.
Um, that's joyful. The energy's beautiful. It's a whole different, yeah, realm of amazingness. Yeah.
Totally. I like to say doing this work, at least for me, has been the literal greatest honor of my entire life. I never saw it coming. I didn't know it was going to happen. It helped me make sense of so much weirdness as a kid where I was like, why am I like this? What the fuck? Why? Why? And here we are in my 40s and I'm like, oh, I think maybe that was why, because we're supposed to do this thing. And so like to me it is the greatest honor, and it's really good to be able to kind of chat with you and talk about it and realize like we are literally all of us, even you, those of you guys in the chat. It's like we're here in this now moment because we're the same, because we're all having this group human experience. We all signed up to come down here to earth, and it's a choice that we make. I don't think any, I mean, I could be wrong, I don't think people get sentenced to earth. It's never been a prison planet for me. It's a place that we come to learn about the dynamics of this realm and human life and duality. And so it is a truly great honor to be doing what I do. And so, yeah, thank you for showing up here and being part of this strange timeline that we all signed up to be on. Um, how can people get a hold of you? How can they book a session with you? Because I guarantee there's going to be a few people from this group here that are like, yes, I absolutely want to do this thing with her. How can they find you? What do they do?
On my website, Cosmic Gateway. So it's cosmic, and then it's so awkward. It's G and then the letter the letter, the number 8 and way.com. But yeah, Cosmic Gateway on the services tab. And just to sorry for the banging noise. My dog is trying to like get in
Oh wait,
the
how
house.
many? So you do have a dog?
I have 2, yeah. I have
Okay, because literally as I was tuning that, you remember when you told me about like the dream that you had, and I was sitting there on the couch there going, huh, what? And it was you sitting, and there was 2 dogs, one on each side of you. One was bigger and one was smaller. And I was just like, huh, interesting. And so boom, there are 2 dogs. Thank you so much. Because I was just like wondering if that was you. Because you know how sometimes you'll kind of tune in on a person and you're like, yeah, I don't know, maybe I'm just daydreaming. I think that's them. But it was you sitting, and there was one dog here and a smaller one there, or whatever whatever the size was. They were just there, and I was like, there they are. And so, yeah, thanks for that.
yeah.
Anyway,
I
go
have
on. You
2.
were saying something.
Yeah, I've totally lost my track. Oh, to
Totally.
preempt what people might say, I don't know if you get this, but I like to make things really complicated for humans. No, I'm just kidding. And people go, I looked at all your services and I don't know which one to choose.
Right? Yes. Yes. Go
Do you have
on.
that?
Go
Yeah.
on. Yes.
Yeah.
Go on.
And I always say to people, whatever one jumps out at you and talks to you, that's the one. Don't
Yeah.
overthink it. You'll
Totally.
know.
Oh
Yeah.
man. Yeah. I fully agree. It's a very common question. Which one should I choose? This one or that one? And I guess I'll make a really weird uh, claim here. It's literally true. They're all the same.
I know.
Actually,
I'm
you're
afraid.
actually telling us what you want. it's like by choosing this experience, you're saying, these are the things that I want to work on. And at least for me, maybe it's different for other people. I'm like, all the sessions are the same. We just focus on different aspects of your journey. And so some of them take longer than others, but yeah. That is
the only distinguishing factor I have is like whether it's a divine counterpart session, which is taking in consideration two energies as opposed to one, you know.
That's very good to know. So do you do readings where it's both individuals at the same time? That's really good to know. People have asked me to do that, and for some reason, and maybe this is just me. We all have our own intricacies, but I'm very resistant. I'm like, I work with one person at a time. I work with your energy field, and sure, we can do a reading on that person, and I'll see them, right after you. But it's like I don't do the co-readings. But I think for me, it's because, and maybe this is my own weirdness. I treat it. And who knows, maybe it's an ego thing too. I treat it like a doctor, and I'm like, when you go to the doctor, two people don't go in at the same time. One patient, and then we see the other one, and then we talk about it afterward. And so that's kind of how I see it. But
no, I think a lot of people feel that way because I've heard feedback that a lot of people don't do what I do in that specific sense. I didn't even know how it was one of those things I fell into. I was like, oh, this works, okay. And that's the vast majority of the work that I do now. So yeah, I guess I kind of found a way to, and a lot of people ask me like, is that a violation? And like, how does that work? And blah, 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 blah. And I always say like, I'm not allowed to access someone's energy field unless I have permission from a higher level. So
totally right. Oh,
do you know what I mean? Like, and there are occasionally times where I can't access, and I will not. I'm like, okay, I can't, and I won't. So yeah,
that's really really good to know. Anyway, I've noticed. Thank you, Cassandra. Put your website in the chat. Thank you for that. So I am looking forward to hearing that a bunch of you guys get a hold of Alisha in the coming days and weeks and take advantage of what she has to offer. And yeah, I honestly want to thank you for showing up. You showed up at exactly the right time. I'm supposed to go through a weird, awkward rant before I do everything. And so we had a really good, long, fun talk about the strangeness of my current dream world. And then you came in here and we were talking about weird dreams and all kinds of strange beings. And so it fit in perfectly. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for kind of coming on this strange channel in this weird little armpit of the YouTube world where not that many people show up here. And so we dearly love the ones that do. If you're one of the people that has stuck through this entire broadcast with us, which it's been a long one today, thank you for showing up. Thank you for being a part of our timeline. Thank you for being a part of the soul group of individuals that chose to come here into this strange human realm and do this, the human journey with us all. And it's been a really big honor to talk to you. I know we've been here for a while, but is there anything else you want to mention or state? Do you have any events or anything coming up? Go ahead.
Yes, I do. I actually want to take this opportunity to thank you because I think what you do is magnificent, and I look forward to, to exploring more. But also, I think what is really strongly pressing on me that I want to say is I'm a big advocate for normalizing the strangeness, and I think you do that just absolutely magnificent.
Thank you. So, I genuinely try to. I just honestly, I've got to the point in my life where I'm like, well, you know what? I'm just going to be the real version of me. And it's really awkward, but the more I've done that, the more people seem to enjoy it. So yeah. Thank you for honoring that.
Keep doing that for, for everyone out there who needs that support to embrace their weirdness. I think it's great.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. No, that's all.
Oh yeah. Do you have any events or anything coming up? I say that because I noticed you had posted about something, so I'm kind of leading into it. But yeah.
Yeah, I have on Monday the 18th, so Easter Monday, I'm doing a death and rebirth transmission. I do transmissions on average once a month, and now I'm collaborating with Dale and Katie Jane. So Katie Jane does frequency sound music. Dale is incredibly knowledgeable on anything and everything, and has a great.
I watched a few of your guys' videos. Actually, I've seen all three of you guys. So yeah, but yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So we're doing it around sort of a death and rebirth theme, being that it is Easter, but it really ties into collective stuff. So it's going to be an interesting one. And I think this topic, for especially for Dale and I, is something that we kind of wig out on all the time. So yeah, that's coming up. It's kind of like it's part sort of presentation, part like a group energy work on that theme. So if people want to join, it's only $33 Australian dollars.
Nice.
And it goes for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. So yeah.
Nice. So how can people join that? Is that through your website?
Yeah. Purchase tickets on the website under the activations tab. There's all the transmissions that I've done for years. I've been doing for years. So yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, nice. Cool. I'm looking forward to hearing that a bunch of you guys join her event in the coming weeks. And yeah, I guess we will officially wrap it up here. But once again, thank you for being a part of our strange journey. I look forward to doing more work with you in the future. I mean that sincerely. And yeah, so for everyone else out there thinking, I'm going to awkwardly pull you off the screen as we do our little outro here. But for everyone else that's been hanging out for this strange 3-hour-long journey, thank you for being a part of our sort of human timeline. Thank you for being a part of my living movie here in the strange human body. We will be back in the coming weeks, you guys. Now, next week, I believe Saturday the 16th, we are going to be doing our regular meeting of our Patreon group over in the Patreon zone. So we're not going to be doing one of these shows next week. We're going to be doing kind of a private thing. You guys can find me at patreon.com/Blue Flame Collective for anyone that wants to take part in that. I should probably advertise Patreon stuff more, but for some reason it's a very well self-contained little group of individuals. And so we'll be doing it in the coming weeks. Or in the coming week, but in 2 weeks from this date, I believe it's the 23rd, Saturday the 23rd, we have a really interesting being who I've actually followed her work, honestly, before most of the people in this strange community. Ileana, the Star Traveler. She goes by many names, but currently it's Ileana. And she's going to be coming in and talk to us about a bunch of alien stuff and remote viewing and her own journey as well. So I hope you guys will check that out. If you have not yet subscribed to this channel, you can help me very greatly by subscribing. We would like to get to 5,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Who knows if that even matters? I don't know. But please do subscribe if you haven't already. I say this in every live stream. Don't worry. The second I say one thing you don't like, you can cancel me by unsubscribing like everything else in the world. You can just cancel it later. But in the meantime, thank you very, very sincerely for being a part of our strange journey. And yes, you guys, we will be back very soon. So take good care of yourselves out there. And yeah, stay sane. It's a crazy time. Actually, the best time we could have chosen to be alive. So we'll see you guys again.